Hello, hello, hello. All right. Hello, everyone. And yes, it should be almost 3 p.m. UK time, and it should be almost 4 p.m. Croatian time. Everything is correct. I am here, very excited. I think today will be a great conversation with Ellie. She'll be on in just a bit. I just wanted to warm us up and get us ready. How's everyone doing? How was your weekend? 10 minutes till 10 a.m. in the Midwest. Let's go. Let's go, baby. All right. Let me make sure Discord is open. There we go. Thumbnail updated. Is like a debate or just a convo? Girls, I am not in the debate bubble. We are just having a convo today. My hope is that Elle will be able to answer some questions that I have about veganism, things that I couldn't answer for myself on my own journey, things we can explore together. I'm going to refer to her as sort of like the vegan expert here, and hopefully she'll have some answers for our questions. Obviously, we'll interact with our chats. She'll be streaming as well. And I don't know if we have obviously we have overlap between our audiences. You guys are the ones who brought me to her channel. So we have overlap with our audiences, which means they'll probably be in both chats. But my hope is that we'll just have a nice conversation. And we'll answer some questions and explore some concepts around veganism. Is there anything on your guys' minds today that you wouldn't mind having me cover with her? Obviously, when she's on and we're talking and everything, like, you guys can also chat in the, I'll be reading chat, or at least I'll be referring to it at points, so we can have an opportunity to ask questions we might be wondering about. I watched a lot of her videos. We apparently have a lot of overlap with our bubble communities. She definitely knows about the debate bubble, and she definitely knows about like the boy bubble. But she's more progressive leaning and is a lesbian, which we love, and does really great street interviews. Like, I don't know if you guys saw those, other than the one we watched on stream with a really adorable guy, but in general, she handles it really well. I think she's very passionate about veganism, so it'd be cool to have a conversation with somebody that seems, let's go lesbians, let's go lesbians. I love that gif. Let's go lesbians. But anyways, I think it will be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. Yeah, I've really been thinking about, I realize my brain is such a top to bottom, bottom to top thinker. I think that's like a very kind of autistic way of thinking, is like, why do we do what we do? That's so important for me, is like, why am I doing this? Especially when people demand something of me. It's like, okay, but why? And not to be like argumentative. I'm genuinely not trying to like be a sassy. I'm just trying to explain that, I'm going to need a reason why I'm getting off the couch right now, or like need a reason why I'm changing my life. And so hopefully we'll answer some why questions today. That's what I'm hoping for. I love a good why question being answered, Oh, it'll be fun. Da, 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 da. It might be a few minutes until I get a little chat link. I also just wanted to warm us up and gather us about. Did anybody see my video? My new podcast? I really liked that one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with The Good Place or Itaroski's films or No Exit, but I really, really liked that podcast. I thought it came out really good. I was really happy that it didn't get copyrighted or demonetized. That was like, what a relief. What a relief, I really liked how it came out. Oh, thank you for watching the premiere, guys. I appreciate that. You never finished The Good Place. I really want to. We're gonna go through Arcane on the Discord because it's been highly recommended. We're just about to finish Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mom Died. We're one weekend away from it this Sunday. And then our goal is to do Arcane review, talk about that. And then after that, I want to do The Good Place. I think The Good Place is like a really good way to digest philosophical ideas in a way that's like really welcoming for most people. And I think it forces you to start off with like bad characters versus we sort of live in a world where we start off with ourselves, and because we think we're the good guys, we sometimes might watch a show like The Good Place and think like I don't relate because I'm a good person, but like that's kind of the point, you know. But it's a good like intro show to philosophy, which I think is important. I think people forget that everybody needs an introduction into these topics. Like I remember reading Les Mis, which not even my favorite, but in high school when I was like 14, in my homeschooling group we read Les Mis, and I remember like that being one of my first, not my first, that's a lie, but like one of my major fictional books in relation to ethics, but also like serious fictional works. You know, I'd read everything before that, of course, and we'd been going to religion class and we had been doing debate class. Like I did debate and homeschooling, you know, and they used to record us and they would record all of our physical habits, and I was always the girl who would be like putting her hair behind her ears constantly. Um but yeah, like even that introduction into how to talk about why you think something is right or wrong, like there needs to be a time to be introduced into it. Whether you're an adult or a kid, like you need a pathway into ethics, into philosophy. So today I'm hoping we'll have a conversation around veganism from that philosophical lens, but it's going to probably be mostly around that idea of what does it mean for it to be wrong to eat animals, right? That's a really interesting. I also finished watching some more documentaries this weekend about veganism or vegan related topics. And I think without a doubt, the way we eat is so bad. Like humans as an animal species, corrupted, though what does that mean to corrupt something within nature? But it's sort of corrupted, whatever that means, our way of eating. Like it's so polluted the way we eat. It's kind of ridiculous how polluted it is. Just the way we eat, the way we waste. Human beings are so good at waste. It's sort of annoying. I also watched, I finally watched a movie. I almost never have time to watch like movies, but I made some time yesterday and I watched Interstellar. And I did cry like a baby because I cry during movies like that, like, you know, family movies or, you know, those types of things. And so I loved it. I thought it was really good. I'm so late. I'm so late. But I just saw it and I really liked it. Kind of like on theme for humanity and environmental problems and keeping the species alive and what it means to be a person. Like perfectly on brand, on theme. On theme, girl, on theme. Okay, just waiting a few more minutes for a link. We'll get started. Chat says hearing someone say they're gonna start Arcane is like a mother watching her child being sent off to war. I've heard some things about it. I heard it was really intense. Like really good, really gay, which we love. So I'm pretty excited to start it. And then see, I'm behind on that. If I didn't like watch things with my community, I probably wouldn't get to it for years. It takes me a really long time to get to new shows and new things, especially since I do spend all my time, like right now I'm creating so much, you know, content. I'm aiming for some goals. It just is so time consuming that I never have the time. But also the irony is that when I watch these shows, it gives me more content ideas and then I'm like inspired to do more content. It's really great. It's a nice little. But anyways, I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to watch it with people. I think that'll be fun. And then that way we can explore ideas a little bit better. Yeah. Kat says I'd be interested in hearing her ideas on pondering lab-grown meat, if lab-grown meat would be vegan. Yeah, I think it's weird. I keep hearing from a lot of vegans, and apparently lab-grown meat is pretty vegan. Though some of them are literally disgusted at meat consumption, which is also another thing that plays into it. Is like, are you disgusted at meat consumption or are you disgusted at the idea of it? I don't know. Okay, let me go ahead. I got the link for the chat. Let me go ahead and pull it up. I'm going to disappear for a second probably. Like my I'm going to turn off this music. I think my video is gonna have to disappear for a second, so I'll be right back. Let me give me 2 seconds to bring Elle in. See you, they can hear you. Okay, I think I did it. You want to talk and say something?
Hello, testing.
Okay, perfect. Guys, let me know if her volume is too low. She, her, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you the same?
Yeah. We're pronoun inclusive here, whatever pronouns work, really. But like, guys, let me know if the volume's good. Everything should be good. I think you can see us and everything looks fine. The camera, I came on the camera and it automatically zoomed into my face. And so I'm like, okay.
It's very intrusive, isn't it?
It is a little bit. So I was like, okay. So that's there. That's okay. Okay, I'm ready to jump in if you are.
Yeah, so I just obviously you don't want a debate. Usually I do debate forums, but I'm also up for conversations. And I saw that you did a 30-day vegan video and you had some questions. And so, if you want to ask those or other things that have popped up, then I'm your friendly neighborhood lesbian.
I love that. I love that. Actually, what I was hoping to do is because I'm coming from like that sort of like student perspective, and I'm going to put you as the expert. Maybe when I'm going to ask you questions, and they're in no way going to be like gotchas, because I
Mhm.
left the debate bubble a long time ago. I'm not really a fan of the way like everyone needs to win a conversation. I'm just like
Yes.
I'm here to explore ideas.
Mhm.
So I do have a lot of questions, and I thought maybe you could help me answer them. And then if we, even if we don't come to answers, just getting us a little bit closer.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
there may be cases where I just don't know, and there's a lot of contention within the movement anyway. Some questions, so obviously my answers aren't going to be like I would obviously ask other vegans as well, but I will try to do it accurately and not misinform.
Perfect. Well, actually, so we can start off there. When I was, my whole life I've heard about vegans, but I never learned about it from a philosophical lens until recently. It was always diet related. It was always about like health or minimizing harm, but it was never like I never thought of it as like a philosophy, which for me as a philosophy girly, I was like, wait, like this can recontextualizes my interest in it. Because now I'm
Mhm.
like, cool, what do you know that I don't know? So is veganism sort of a monolithic philosophy? I'm getting a lot of feedback from the vegan community where some of them feel like it's very clear what it is, and some of them feel like it's a little bit more lax. So how black and white is it as a philosophy system?
I think it's just this kind of like people overcomplicate it, but essentially it's just this philosophy that is against the exploitation of non-human animals, like the commodification, the oppression, that sort of thing. And vegans do argue about what that really means and what that entails, but to keep it quite simple, it's just a case of it's against exploitation and rights violations.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. What I think, because I was thinking about how to have this conversation, I'm assuming you didn't have a chance to watch my podcast about my vegan journey because it's pretty long and stuff like that.
Yeah, I watched that today so that it was
Mm.
fresh and
Oh,
everything.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want me to should I verbalize at least where I think we're like I'm on the same page with the vegans and then maybe where I deviate and where I'm confused?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we agree no ethical consumption under capitalism. We're really struggling because
Mhm.
exploitation is like the bottom line, dollar over people, dollar over animal. So my dilemma is that I don't think there's an ethical way to consume factory farm meat. So I think I'm
Mhm.
on the same page there, and that includes seafood, which we're gonna lump in as meat altogether. I know some people don't. I don't know why, but there we go. Um, uh, in any way, like animal abuse, exploitation, like anything that's puts the human above the animal, like I'm not a fan of. I don't believe like humans are more than animals. I just think we're specific. So I think we're animals on a planet evolved over millions of years. Like I don't believe in a god or angels or demons or magic or anything. I strictly believe like we're here as like having a biological experience. I don't know how much that plays into veganism as a philosophy. I'm a little confused on that front actually. Um and then I'm trying to think of like what else matter. Oh, I'm personally in my own personal life right now on a journey of like not going out of my way to buy like dairy or meat or any animal products. Though on occasion, like I might be tempted for a croissant, which then we can ask that conversation about what does that mean in relation
Mhm.
to veganism. I'm trying to think of what else kind of matters in this conversation. Can you think of anything that might be like a vegan test?
Well, we could go with that, for example.
Okay.
Like, I think a lot of the time, what separates maybe like a plant-based thinker. So, say if there's a category of plant-based and people are like, what's plant-based, what's veganism? So a vegan, say for example, you had a situation where you had like a homestead and you had a pig, and every night they were kissed to sleep and sung a little lullaby, and it was like the nicest kind of condition they could be in. The plant-based person might not so much have a problem with that because of the treatment aspect.
Hmm.
The vegan is going to have a problem because they are being seen, if they are killed, even in a nice quote unquote way,
Hmm.
they are being seen as a commodity. They are being seen as someone to take from, rather than having uh, intrinsic value, like just being valuable in and of themselves. So it's that's where the deviation might be. Like, say, because people might see it as black and white, but see if you've got the vegan lens, like having a croissant, knowing that it might have egg in it, for example. There would be a kind of, I'm not like an avoid just a general avoidance for that, not seeing it as food because of the exploitation that was entailed in it. So that might be where the deviation lies, because you talked about factory
Yeah.
farming. I don't know how you'd feel in that scenario with the
Yeah.
pig lullaby. But yeah,
Yeah, no, actually, now that you said it out loud that way, so basically animals aren't products.
no, they aren't ours to
They're not
use.
products.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're okay, so I like what that sounds like. So my
Mhm.
brain goes, "Yeah, animals aren't products." Like that makes sense to me. The problem, and I'm sure you guys you've heard this and the vegan community's heard this a billion times. I think I run the dilemma of because I believe I'm an evolved animal and a biological creature. I believe there are like, and this is where my philosophy, special interest falls into is like I even created a philosophy about like the levels of depth you can have with your biological experience. And so
Okay.
I have a theory that maybe it's in the works that maybe at the quote highest level, which is not meant to be hierarchical, but for the sake of language, you would be a vegan. But maybe not in the way that the construct is explaining it to me. Instead of being sort of anti your nature, it would be within your higher nature not to need to consume animals, but not outside of your higher nature to run into the issue where you might have to. And so that's where I deviate. That's where my brain sort of like stops. Because if people kept telling me in my comment section, like, Brittany, going 30 days vegan is like saying I'm 30 days not racist. And I was like,
Mhm.
but where's the justification for ever being racist? Where's the justification for ever like doing harm to others versus like with animals? I feel like there's got to be a situation for justification, though rare.
I think, is this where you were getting at, where you were like, oh, I don't think what stops me from consuming the flesh of animals is because I know in a survival
Right.
situation I would need. I would say put it in the, if it's ever confusing, like put it in the human context,
Hmm.
because you saw no, I think you said you saw no morally significant difference between them and us. In a survival situation, I might consume a squirrel and it would still be wrong to do. But in a survival situation, or like a self-defense situation,
Sure.
I could be anti-murder, but someone could come into my house trying to kill me,
Sure.
and I kill them. I'm still anti-murder. Like,
Right.
you know, obviously that isn't an act of murder under lawful definition, but I'm still I can still be anti-violence
Right.
while,
Right.
you know, conducting that. So even in the human context, you wouldn't, there might be a justification to be sexist in a moment. Like, say, for example, there's a fire and two people are stuck under a rock. You might be sexist in a way and be like, oh, there's a woman there, so she's probably not strong, so I'll help her and not the man.
Sure.
So there might be some weird kind of hypothetical you can make where you could be that way, but yeah, even if you could, it would stand that in that situation that you're actually in, the justification isn't there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Okay, so because I have an allowance when we talk about ethics and morals on my channel, I have like survival rules and living rules. So like in survival mode, I think there's a lot of justification for like lying as an example, lying out of survival. But then in living mode, like why are we lying? Like what do we need to lie about when we're in a privileged position, when we're allowed like, or even stealing food, like stealing food in a survival situation, like stealing food when you're living and you have the means, like, hey, now we have like a problem, right? Like something's wrong. So is it kind of similar where like veganism in a privileged living situation makes sense? Veganism, if you're really in a survival mode, then we make exceptions because I don't believe in objective morality. I'm not sure if you do.
I'm not an objectivist.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. So then is that what you're saying to me?
Yeah, it's kind of confusing because is it the case that ethics go out the window as soon as you return to instinct? I don't know if that's actually the case, but yeah, I think in a situation you still could be anti-violence and do violence. So yeah, it's kind of that sort of thing. But you know, you said in your video, in a position of privilege, you have more of a. I think. Sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, but there was a segment about, you know, having this duty that, of course, if you have the privilege to do so, why wouldn't you? You do less bad things, because that's just what veganism is. You talked a lot about being less bad, and I agree. You're not doing anything virtuous by being vegan. You're just removing the stuff you were doing that was already wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think there's this has been a theme this month on the channel where I do think human beings have evolved in a way to allow themselves to automatically think they're like in the right. Like, and I think that's, you know, great in some aspects, but obviously fails in so many others. And I think I'm trying to avoid continuing those like generational curses of assuming that I know what I'm doing just because I feel good about it. So that's why I'm even challenging this thought process in general. And that's why my audience is on this journey with me. Though some of them are vegan and brought me to your channel, it's like this idea is the idea is that I do think we could be less bad, or we could harm reduce, or we could do things to an extent. Obviously, I think everyone's limited by their biological experience and where they're at and where they are in terms of their life journey, right? But yeah, it feels obvious to me that, you know, I want to embrace veganism, but then I'm still confused at the rules. And I don't know if it's like my autistic brain or if it's the way that I'm getting feedback from the community. But when I hear things like no animals at any point for any reason, I'm like, is that literal? Am I being too black and white? Like, is that literal? Like never? Like, you know,
well,
what does that mean?
If it helps, I'm seeking a diagnosis myself. So, and people who are neurodivergent, I have a lot of neurodivergent people in my chat. It seems that like one of the criteria is a sense of it, like injustice, like being completely against that in the animal context. And yeah, it is a case of like, because there's no morally significant difference between humans and other animals that would justify it, you know, it isn't okay to do that to a human. Of course, it's the case that, yeah, it's going to be no animal exploitation. Like we need to come away from using them in testing. We need to come away from, you know, racing them and gambling on them. Like that's the thing, like veganism, there's so many, when people say like veganism is a diet, it's a bit confusing because obviously then that doesn't explain why we, you know, boycott, you know, greyhound racing, why we are against animal testing. So yeah, it's all of it. And it's not to be like the accusation a lot of the time is, oh, it's very black and white and therefore extreme. But it's like, well, what would be the justification to do it to one?
Mm.
You know, if it's not, for these trillions that it does so happen to be, it can't be okay for the one either. That would be what I'd say. I hope that was clear.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I really do think human beings in their own right are like an animal species, and I do think, and even saying that is like there are billions of people who believe like God put them here, which is like a valid way to exist in the world. It's just like a little, there's a little anyways, so there's gonna be tension with like that belief system being foundationally different. And because I think I'm an animal, I think I'm doing the best within my animal ability. I think sometimes it sounds like vegans and meat eaters are making humans out to be like so much greater than they are, which
Mhm.
confuses me. Like maybe the meat eater will say like we have dominion and we're entitled to animal bodies, and then the vegans will say maybe like we're so much better than this, we owe it to them. And I'm like, oh, both feel like we're putting humans once again at the top. Like, how do
Mhm.
you contend with sort of that? Like, how are we both animals and yet we're expected to do better? Is it because it's within our capabilities?
Yeah, it's within, we are moral agents. So, we expect better of ourselves. If we make a mistake, we have to not do that again. We expect that of each other if they make an error. Um, and I would say that, I'm obviously going to be biased here, but I would say that the vegans don't put ourselves on a pedestal despite being claim we are, because we are saying our sensory pleasure, our entertainment, our comfort, our needing to fit in with society, they are not more important than the literal rights, the negative rights of another sentient being.
Yeah.
So I would say if that ever comes up, oh, you vegans are on your high horse, it's just like, actually, no, like I don't think anymore. I did at one point, like, oh, it's sad that this chicken has to be killed because I want their leg. But now I think, no, I'm no better. But I want to say with the animal thing, we are just animals, but a lot of people will compare us to other animals and the behavior that they do and say that it's justified because they do it.
Sure.
There's so many things animals do that we don't want to bring back or encourage, that so yeah, we are animals, but we are moral agents.
Mm.
So we're not, we're working this out and we're silly and we make terrible decisions and destroy everything. But at the same time, we can do better. We are capable, and I think we should be just striving for that. Is what I would
Mm.
say.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think the reason I I don't know that I believe all humans are having the same relationship with that moral agency or moral
Mm,
relationship. And so the dilemma we're going to have, right, is like I agree with you personally that I hope humanity strives forward, though I try not to make prescriptions on people because I do feel like it's like asking the bear to be different than its nature. I think if it's within your time to be better, you will. I think
mhm.
people are where they are because that's what they are capable of doing. Though I think you and I, funny enough, I do think our content offers people access to tools like your on the street interviews are really, really good,
Oh, thank
and you're
you.
really good at it. And I noticed that you are able to have conversations with people and they can hear you, and then you guys have those discussions, and for the most part it goes pretty okay from the ones that I've seen.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where even when it gets a little, I saw a couple that got a little like woo, woo what's gonna happen, but it really honestly it's just people feeling defensive at the fact that they could be bad you know
Yes, that's the thing. For all humans are very clever at defending themselves.
Mm, mm-mm.
And when all these people are engaging in a behavior that society deems acceptable, that your family are doing, and we like to quantify good action with good person, so bad action with bad person, and these
Right.
people all around us, they can't be bad people. So this action can't be bad, and let me have all these justifications. And when really, obviously, I've learned a lot in the nearly 11 years being vegan,
Wow.
but my fundamental views on animals didn't really have to change all that much. And I don't. It's rare that I meet a person who I think is being honest with me and says, I actually really don't care what happens to animals. I want to exploit them. I enjoy exploiting them. Like, you know, it's not really like something that people think. Obviously there are going to be a few people who might lack moral agency to a degree, who
Sure.
you know, might not experience the world, as we were saying, the same way and view animals that way. But for the most part, I think you can get people on board with this, that animals are not ours to take from.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. I I agree. See, I like the way that sounds. I really like it. I think my brain wants to put things into practice and then think like, okay, how does that work for all people? Is there an allowment? And this is why I think I'm very weird about like labels or constructs, and I'm good with a construct. I love a label.
Mhm,
I just want to make sure that if I'm, especially as a public figure, ever identifying with a construct or a label, that I
mhm,
understand the rules of the label. And so I think what I'm confused about with the idea of veganism is in some regard like like my heart's with Palestinians right now, right? Like they're literally the fact that they have to work to eat food and they're being genocided at the same time. And I'm just like,
mm,
if I could this and 1,000 chickens show up, like I would do it. Or in this case, 1,000 vegetables, like I would do it. Like, you know,
mhm.
and if I had the choice, like 1,000 chickens or 1,000 vegetables, like I would choose the vegetables. What is it? Okay, what is it? Great. Like feed them, give them food, give them shelter. In a situation like that, like, is there ever a moment in which like vegans get to sort of like make even that decision in that kind of a situation? Like, yeah, they're not alone in a forest, but they're being genocided right now. So I kind of feel like if they see a chicken, they should eat it. Like they're on the risk of death. Some of them are starving. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, in these survival situations we were talking about earlier, you know, people might like we could talk about you know, what you talked about, theft earlier. Like
Yeah,
if someone's stealing a piece of bread,
right.
like the theft is different. But I suppose the issue we run into when we're asked this question is kind of forget like what the chicken might want in that instance.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, do I, if there's no morally significant difference, like, do I just like feed an individual to another individual? Like, I wouldn't want to make that decision. Like
Mm,
for me, my brain is like, hang on,
sure,
like,
sure.
yeah. So, but obviously, I can understand in survival situations what people do is different, and it is different, and it may still be deemed immoral. But yeah, if you're on a desert island or something like that, you may eat a human being, and it's still going to be wrong. But you
Yeah.
know,
Like if I think like you're deserted, I don't think you should kill another human to eat it. But if it
mhm.
dies, then I feel like that makes sense. If
You
you
did
think
mention that in your video,
yeah, I
yeah.
did. Like that could make sense to me. But that's because I acknowledge that I'm a human and I need other humans to have the investment of keeping other humans alive to some extent, because I'm also pro-choice and I believe in assisted suicide, like,
Mhm.
you know, within reason. So like I'm a big fan of like people can live and die how they want. And I don't believe in objective moral, so then my brain allows me to kind of play with this adaptability to the scenario. Like, I could identify as vegan very easily as long as we allow instances for these survival situations within that definition of veganism. Well, then
Well, have
I'm
you,
yeah.
the vegan society definition says as far as practicable and possible, and it makes for these probable instances
Mm,
for people like yourself who need that kind of like construct and how that would
yeah.
fit into every kind of scenario. And so, with that kind of definition, that probably makes leeway for that.
Okay.
There are other definitions that are put forward that, you know, it confuses me which one I ought to follow, but I go down the kind of exploitation route. And yeah, there may be situations like sitting on leather seats or something like that that
Yeah,
you can't
sure.
avoid, um, you know, on a bus or something like that. There may be those things, but you know, a vegan practicing should be avoiding that. That you
Okay.
know, that's kind of what that is. It's just like you can follow a principle of anti-murder,
Mhm, mhm.
and but unfortunately there are places in the world where people kill each other because it may be desperate. You know, you don't know all the situations that people might be in, but you can still you follow the anti-murder principle and not do it yourself in the privileged position. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, I do think if you kill someone or anything, or any living creature, you should mourn the death of that life. That in some way pay respect to the death of that life, and like understand we will all die. So I believe in some like and I've had this.
A bit of spirituality there,
Yeah, it
sort of thing.
is. Like I
Yeah.
kind of think that because we are moral agents and we have the ability to ponder, we have the ability to give thanks. And
Hmm.
so it's like, or pay homage in some way to like the people that have come and gone. Like I live in Europe, and one of the cool things about being here as an American is like there are like Roman ruins. And like when I look at these walls and I think of how many thousands and millions of lives have passed by these walls, and I think about like who built them, there's a part of me that's like, wow, like we really are just like living history. And I try to think the same way about animals. Like I look at fossils and I see things and I see evidence of, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, like these creatures really lived here. They were here. So I'm all about that relationship with sort of being a part of the ecosystem, because I do think in that sense, there's no difference between us.
Hmm.
So in that sense, we're all biological creatures. But because we're animals, I don't, in the same way that I don't think there's a difference between us, I don't think we're the same either. In the same
Yeah.
way that a flea isn't the same as a ant isn't the same as a bear.
Yeah.
Like I don't fault the bear. Like and this is something I've always said, even as a child, that really like disturbed people in my communities, where I was just like, hey, if the shark eats you in the ocean, like, bro, you were kind of hanging out in its area,
Hmm.
like leave the shark alone. And they're like, well, we have to kill the shark now. I was like, okay, well, that
Yeah.
feels unfair, like to kill the shark. And I love swimming in the ocean. Like I am very much that girl who's like, hey, if a shark kills me, good for the shark. I get it. I'm here. It probably didn't, whatever. But that
Hmm.
kind of feels similarly for humans and animals, which is like, yeah, like if you have to eat, you got to kill an animal, like it is what it is. Like that's a part of life. And then it becomes, well, if what is needed look like, and if we don't have to do it, like I don't know if I give the animal the same moral agency as us. And therefore,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to, like, I've eaten insects, I've eaten meat, I've eaten like so many different things in my life. It's hard for me to give them the same as myself, and yet I can see how there could be a symbiosis between us that could make it so we're in harmony at least. Like I have a
Yeah.
question, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
You said it yourself. Like, uh, for me, I think there's this kind of veil that I put over everything when it comes to like animals. When I go to these vigils and I see these animals before they go to be gassed, um, I have eaten them. And I haven't eaten a human, I haven't eaten a dog. So there may be this extra kind of visceral discomfort because I haven't done that, but there's no difference to the victim. Like, so I think it's have you heard vegans talk about making the connection?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, it's I don't think it really happened for me until maybe 5 years into really like being vegan. But I got through veganism through just seeing the dairy industry and realizing, okay, this animal cruelty isn't just something that happens elsewhere, it happens here. And then I made the connection and realized it's not about cruelty, it's about using them in the first place and seeing them as, again, the whole someone to take from. And I could say it all day, that they're not ours to use, but there is this, it's like a light bulb moment. It was like when I realized I was gay. It's like, oh my god, what society told me I should expect, completely different. And it's like a switch of like, oh, they are literally like, I shouldn't even consider um taking from them, like using them. Like it would be a last resort. Like I wouldn't dare think to kill a human. Like that's out of the question.
Yeah.
So it was the same for I tangented. I'm sorry, but
No, no, no,
I
no,
hope
no.
I.
That's really good actually, because okay, here on this channel we call it a bubble pop when we have a perception change that radically moves us in a different direction, because we're like, "Oh shoot. Okay. Wait, now I can't go back to thinking how I used to. Now I
Yeah.
can only think this way." So you have this bubble pop and this connection. Okay, this is where I'm not having this connection. I'm having, hold on, two ideas came to mind. I got to bring a notebook to class. What am I doing here? Um I shouldn't even be thinking about it. You referenced it in one of your videos, I believe, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, about the Bible and how the Garden of Eden was vegan.
Yes, like I try not to get into debates with religiosity just because I just can't understand. I've never been
For
religious,
sure,
and
for sure.
but yeah, there are, you can interpret the scripture in many ways, and one way to interpret it is, yeah, that
Okay,
the
well,
Garden
I
of
was
Eden was
born and raised very Catholic, and I was
okay.
very Catholic my whole life until I was 19. And I, along this vegan journey, also was interested in why in the Garden of Eden, God gave them dominion over animals, but they were never eating them. And it
Mhm,
was only after they were cast out that they engaged in that behavior, which also kind of coincides with this idea that maybe further constructive enlightenment inserted here into conversation, that we would be vegan.
mhm.
But maybe
Well,
not like, yeah, like,
it's the dominion. Yeah, you might have
yeah.
dominion over someone, but you do have dominion over someone when you have guardianship over them.
Yeah,
But you wouldn't think to hurt them in any way, or you work against their best interest.
right. Okay, now
Yeah.
one thought I have that I think is going to bring these two thoughts to head is I've been watching all the documentaries.
Okay.
So I've seen like all the Netflix ones. I've seen as many as I could find online. I saw the ones that were recommended on the list that I was finding, and all of them from, I don't know, Cowspiracy to Seaspiracy to like all of them. It's all about how we have royally ruined our consumption of food. Like we have
Mm.
like we as humans, as a biological species, has like, I don't even know if this is possible because we are nature itself, but we kind of like turn nature on its like axis. Like we are out of balance. We are just wasting food. The amount of food that goes to waste is very frustrating for me. I worked in the food industry before I was a YouTuber full time, before I was a nanny, and before, big beginning of my 20s, I was in the food industry. And it would like pain me how much food went to waste. Just so much food. And I do think this is the problem with human beings is like I'm not a human being that subscribes to this idea that like we all have to like earn our right to eat.
No.
Like I feel like we should just be like fed and clothed and stuff. And
Mhm.
so a part of me wonders if we ever got back into sync. Let's say the universe righted itself and human beings found great harmony and the air was clear and the grass came back and animals were in abundance. Would there be a symbiosis in which we would be eating animals in any way, using their hides, making furniture, any of those things? Or would there be, or no, do you think our nature, like our actual evolutionary nature, brought us to the point where we didn't need animals anymore? Like, do you think that was sort of I don't want to say the goal because I don't think there's an inherent goal, but do you understand the question?
Yeah, like if there were harmony, would we do that to individuals?
Yeah.
No, because I don't think there could be harmony, because I could easily be that cow having being skinned. Like I just so happen to be brought into a human body,
Sure.
or however that happened. So it's not wouldn't be harmonious for the cow in that instance. So I would say that couldn't be harmony. But I think what happened was we settled in areas, and then we just realized we could domesticate and selectively breed animals to have attributes that we're looking for, like overproducing their wool, overproducing eggs, overproducing milk, and we realized that we could do that, and then we could sell that. So
Yeah.
I think it just kind of fell into place in that way. But yeah, I can't see harmony if animals are being exploited.
Okay. Okay. I think I probably also take a little bit of more of a constructed spiritual lens in a sense where I think like every rock, tree, and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. Like I do kind of think like plants are living creatures with like some level of conscientiousness, which is like subjective to the perception of our brains. I understand that. And so a part of me wouldn't be surprised if in 100 years they're like, oh, animals are like plants are judging us. I'd be like, okay, well, that makes sense. Like I'm judging them. We're judging each other. I don't know that we aren't all just living. Like I kind of wonder what that means to be alive and to face ourselves and have to realize like we are living creatures at the end of the day and we
Mhm,
are consuming living creatures,
mhm.
but harm reducing that consumption would be key. And I could see why you would go vegan then. Because even if plants have a conscientiousness or like are alive in some aspect, which we know they are, eating not animals and just eating plants would still be a level of harm reduction, right?
Yeah, in that instance, it would still be, yeah, and it say if they were sentient and we
Hmm.
understood them to be, then we would have to move on to like like lab created
Ah,
food.
sure, sure, sure,
It would
sure.
be like I think Star Trek, where Star Trek's vegan, where
Yeah,
they
that makes
just
sense.
generate this food. But yeah, I get into arguments with people a lot about plants like sentience. Now they are living, but we understand them not to be sentient, and I suppose biologically it wouldn't make sense for them to be sentient because they can't actually escape or do very much. So I wouldn't be shocked, but I also would be shocked, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But yeah, as you say, even if it were, it's not kind of the silver bullet that the anti-vegans use.
The with peace and love, the reason my podcast about that veganism journey wasn't even like with meat eaters in mind was because I just the argumentation is not interesting to me. I'm interested in the vegans' perspective because they're the ones who are actually trying something
Mhm.
new and challenging the status quo and like actually thinking about what their actions mean. And so for me, that's much more important as an exploration. So can you jump into sentience with me then? Because
Yes.
I do definitely I'm not sure that I value sentience specifically over non-sentience, but can you explain that value to me as a vegan?
So yeah, sentience, because the good and the bad can be done to an individual who is experiencing, who can perceive good and bad in the first place. So if someone is a someone and they're sentient, then you can do bad to them and harm them, and we see harm and hurting as bad, or taking their life from them as bad. Um, so in that instance, a lot of vegans value the sentience, because that's why, like, if I slam my table, that it's not sentient,
Sure.
it's not someone, so it doesn't matter. But it would matter if they were, a sentient being.
Mm.
Would probably be the best way to describe it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think in that instance, let's say you're because I'm trying to relate it to this idea of what is hurt in that moment if you're destroying something like a table. It's you. You're the sentient being who's processing the ugliness within you. Like if you slam a table and you're
Mhm.
angry, you're out of sync with your emotions. There's something about that it makes sense to me. What I'm trying to aim for, what my work is predicated on, my work, what I'm trying to do, okay, is I am trying to solve what I'm trying to add 1 more % of knowledge, maybe 0.5% and more knowledge into this philosophical lens that we have available to us, which is like, what does it mean to exist? What does it mean to even be alive? Like, what does it mean? Not in this like, I don't want to make up a story in order to find the answers. I want to find the answers in order to understand the story. And so I wonder, how does veganism play into the story? Obviously, it would be incredible for the planet if we went vegan for like 20 years. Like if we just did it for like a few decades, we could fundamentally change like so
Mhm.
much for the positive for humanity, which is why it's like kind of interesting to me to watch human beings. I have this new theory that they're actually very bad at looking into the future. Like we
Mhm.
get told all the time, like we care about the future, we care about our kids, we care about the but nobody's really thinking about the future because the future kind of like we have solutions, but
Mhm.
they're not interested in them because I think they're afraid of wasting 30 years of their life not eating meat in order to
Mhm.
attain this like fix of climate change and all the pollution, you know? So how does that play sort of into your philosophy in terms of going on the street and talking to people? Are you making a prescription? Are you evangelizing in a sense for
Yeah,
veganism?
I want everyone who can do these things, who's in this position to do it, like,
Mm.
absolutely. Like, I want to see everyone. I want to see a world where everyone is vegan, like, and no one even thinks to exploit an animal. So I am doing that. I'm making prescriptions, and it's, like, I'm also trying to have conversations, everything, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have an ideal where they'd go, you know what, I'll go vegan. I'm gonna go get a vegan sandwich, and when I go to the I was gonna go bet on the horses, but I'm not gonna do that.
Sure.
So yeah, I am doing
Mm,
that.
mm, mm, mm. You know, it's interesting. I'm not a fan of betting on animals or in general
Mhm.
betting at all. I think it's bad
Oh,
for everything, like
mhm.
everybody. Like I'm not a fan of them. It's what I'm trying to figure out is what do vegans know that actually is universal. I'm using that very like loosely here. That could actually be better for us in general because I think every philosophical system has the answers, but it doesn't have
Oh,
all the answers. So I'm
yeah,
trying to
you mentioned that, and then
yeah.
I tangented. Um, I think, like, why I think it's been just a specific passion that I can't come away from, despite even maybe wanting to. But I think it really is there is a root of all evil in exploiting animals. So think of all the justifications that people have used to exploit human beings. They're not as smart. They're different. Their appearance is different. They I don't know, it's in our nature, like all these things that we've said that have stopped progression. I mean, surgery was even something that people were like, no, we can't do that because that's unnatural.
Right.
So we could have potentially stopped, like not bothered with enacting surgery on people because it was playing God, unnatural. So all these arguments we use and exploiting them, I think is the same justifications that lead to all exploitation. So it's not necessarily, it has all the answers, but there are a lot of flaws that surface and you see elsewhere. Like you would see in homophobia. Apparently it's not natural, but I mean, it is natural. Like it's seen in many species. I don't pose it as the answer to everything. The world goes vegan, suddenly everything's peachy. But it's so much. We're talking about trillions of sentient lives being taken.
Yeah.
So in number, it's so drastic. And in principle, it is so fundamental, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see human beings like on that evolutionary journey? Because right now, like we're obviously struggling with how we treat our own kind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where do you see them going? How long do you think it will take for human beings to reduce the amount of suffering that we inflict on ourselves, let alone on non-human animals? We're getting better on the macro, right? I think that's obvious. Like, but on the micro right now, we're just like in a very 2 steps back headache of a situation. But as we move forward, which we will, I do think, first of all, plant-based eating, vegan eating is up. It is coming. It is like it is here. The question is like, how do we go plant-based or vegan without also exploiting human beings in the process? Like with cashew farming and stuff like that. Like, how do we do that with coffee and stuff like that? What is your future look like? What is your hope for it, I guess?
Yeah. So I think an interesting book for you, if you haven't read it, would be Humankind: A Hopeful History by Rutger Bregman. About the fundamental good in people and whether or not we can see that. I'm you talked about being bad at predicting the future. I'm terrible at it. If I can't conceptualize it very well. But there shouldn't be exploitation that follows from not exploiting. I don't think it's a case of, because we can't exploit you, we have to exploit you.
Right.
I'm trying to think of a situation where that would be. But obviously, like, if someone's anti-exploitation, it would make sense that they're going to be anti-exploitation in the human-animal context. And, those are systems that are very difficult for me to delve into because I can't conceptualize the alternative. But for some reason, when it comes to veganism, it's a bit simpler to me because it's just don't exploit them and leave them be, and only intervene if it's for their best interest. But obviously with the human context, there's all this like capitalism and jobs and all this stuff that is like, okay, how do I deal with the solution to that? And would that actually look better? So I'm trying to be helpful.
Yeah. Do vegans kind of struggle with human exploitation? Like, do they? Because I wondered, as I was like reading up on cashews, every vegan loves cashews, and I love cashews. My partner and I recently took cashews out of our purchasing item because of the exploitation of the women in those industries. And I was like, look, we can't do it with everything, but we can do it with who needs cashews? We don't need those. Like, that's not a need in our life, so we can do it easily. And so we've been thinking about ways to do that. And I'm on, this journey with veganism. So it's not about being perfect. Like, I want to make it abundantly clear. I don't believe in perfection. And any philosophy that prescribes a perfection aspect, like I wish, but I can't. It's too stressful and it's not real life, even if I'm doing it. Even if I'm doing it perfectly, I could never ask somebody else to do it perfectly. I cannot ask people to do what I'm capable of. I find that I'm only capable of it because I'm here at this point in my life. If you had asked me 10 years ago, first of all, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I never would have even fathomed veganism, except that I thought it was cool. Because I was like dating vegans and I was like, this is kind of cool. But like, that's not the reason to go vegan, right? So, Yeah, is there a discrepancy, I guess, with vegan activism in terms of the focusing on exploitation of humans? I know it's not your focus, but
Yes.
how does that play a role in the community?
Because then it is then considered, because obviously if principally you're anti-exploitation, it's probably going to be the case that you're going to be anti-exploitation in these practices. I guess the difference is, like, I don't eat cashews really myself,
Mm,
but I don't know too much about the industry. I know the chemicals, if not wearing correct
right, right,
PPE,
right.
can. So let's say it's baked into the cake of using animals that you're gonna, like, for their bodies and secretions of testing. It entails a rights violation, like that's going to happen. But in the context of like cashew farming, is it the case that that can be done without violating someone's,
Okay,
like? So that's where it's separate, like
right.
in a sense. It's not baked into the cake, but it might be the bad practices, that are causing bad things to happen, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
and that might be the fault of like the industry or something like that. But that's why veganism isn't just about like the factory farms and everything like that, because obviously in the factory farms cruel things happen, but it's going to be exploitative and harmful
Sure.
to use these animals in that
Yeah, yeah,
way
yeah.
anyway, even in a small farm. So that's why it's kind of,
Because
there's a
the animals
separation.
will end up dead, right?
The animals will end up dead basically in every case, but say if you could perpetually keep them alive, like like sows, like mother pigs, for they live for quite a while until they
Sure.
can no longer get pregnant. They're not they might just die, they might not even be killed, but even if they didn't get killed, they've been exploited. And obviously cruel things are happening within that, but they are being exploited for, it's like breeding, dogs, for
Right.
example.
Which, I'm not a fan of.
Mhm.
Okay, so does this relate to veganism against vegetarianism when vegetarians say like can we non-exploit eggs and milk? Like isn't there a way to not make it exploitative? Like how does that work in the vegan bubble? Cuz I know that they it's just not a thing, right?
Yeah, so it wouldn't be a thing because you're still seeing them as like,
Things that produce for you.
yeah, they're still like, I don't think when someone has a period that I can use their period and just take it. Like,
I don't know what you want with it, but
I just
yeah.
want to take this.
Yeah,
I want
yeah,
this.
yeah.
It's mine now.
Sure.
So, the best thing to do in that case, if you rescue chickens, is to feed them the eggs back, because they actually excrete, like expel a lot of their nutrients, because again, we've selectively bred them, seen them
Right.
as commodities to overproduce. So yeah, it's the non-vegan lens. You talked a lot about in your videos, like trying to become less bad, and I didn't see your video, but I saw a title of a video
Mm.
saying, why is it so hard to be good?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was thinking you're probably going to go with the route, you might not have, but of like, because it's set up quite badly.
Mm.
That's the problem. It is set up badly, where we are brought up to think, oh, we can use them, we can stroke the dog because we want to, even if they're uncomfortable. We do it with people. Give me a
Yeah.
hug. I don't want a hug.
Right.
And like, I that took me a long time to realize, and I think being vegan has helped me slowly realize, actually, the autonomy of the individual, it means more to them than my comfort or my pleasure. So even seeing them as like someone,
Yeah.
um it can boil down to very like seemingly benign things, even in the human context, like just valuing your partner because they have given so much of their autonomy in a way to you in a romantic setting. So you value their time more, you're more appreciative of them, that kind of lens, just seeing them as individuals is what I'd say.
Yeah, it's so funny. There's a part of my brain that understands you're explaining like a real perception switch. And I think if anyone had had it, it would have been enough to like go vegan and would have made a lot more embodied sense. I'm not having an embodied experience. I'm having a very logical experience. And I usually wait till I have the embodied one as well because
Mhm.
I want to feel like I made the choice because I knew it was right in every aspect versus just like logic. I think logic is scary to me 'cause sometimes we logic our ways into really bad solutions, and I don't
Yes.
wanna do that either,
Mhm.
but it's weird to look at this is going to sound so silly, but I was watching some blue cheese videos yesterday and I was like, man, blue cheese is great. And I was like thinking about cheese and how much I know cheese is always the last thing to go for people. And I was like, man, it's so great. But then why does this thing that is so great, like how could it be so bad? I feel like Little Mermaid, where I was like, how could this world that creates such beautiful things be bad? But we know it is. And
Hmm.
that's sort of the irony of being a person is like we are both at the same time. We are these amazing creatures who have created so much bad, but the
Hmm.
good we've even created, like even these computer systems, like they didn't come at the without the expense of people, you
Hmm.
know? And so we participate in that in reality. Like I always say if AFAB people or fem people or whatever were in charge of the world, like we'd probably still be in huts, but not because we couldn't build skyscrapers. But because we'd be vibing with nature, bros. Like, what do I need to live in at the 50th floor of a building for? Like, what do I need to live up there for? But then, like, I think like men or AMAB people, they like, I don't know, they're having like a different biological experience to some extent, like in a different way. But then I think that it's a mental and a spiritual relationship with self, for a lack of a better word. But like, I think there is a harmony that I'm seeking with nature that I think respects it and respects that it might kill me, but also respects that I'm a part of it. And I am trying to harm reduce that process. And so I'm not having the embodied experience of like veganism, I get it. But I am having the
Hmm.
like, there's something here. Like, do you know who Alex O'Connor is?
Yes.
Okay, and no shade to Alex, but I was so shocked for a person who like makes a living like debating
Yes.
and dissecting ideas that he decided not to be vegan because of inconvenience. I was like, I'm confused. Do we rape again because it's like not convenient? Like I'm just confused. So then my
Hmm.
brain was like, was he ever vegan? But I don't want to say that necessarily. But my chat and I had that conversation the other day. And I don't want to call him like a fake or a sellout. That's not my business. But I couldn't imagine having the embodied experience you say you're having, like the switch, and
Hmm.
then going back to eating animals because inconvenience.
Yeah.
So I'm confused there about
I
like,
th- I think I think probably what happens is I think a lot of it is social pressure. Like we are
mm,
the product of our environment. For
hmm.
usually the people we hang out with are very similar to us. You know, people who I hang out with in my real life are queer and vegan. You know,
Yeah.
like that we have similar views and understandings of the world, and so I think a lot of it is just like the society is telling you this is okay. Your friends, your family is telling you it's okay. They're telling you, oh, you look a bit weak, you look a bit ill,
Yeah.
and you internalize that. But I am a bit spiritual in a way, in kind of like an agnostic way. But I understand for me, I'm not part of nature anymore, and I do respect the elements of it. But at the same time, I would go to the hospital.
Mm.
I use I cling to my phone.
But are those
I
nature? Because like we built them out of nature. Like I feel like we are the beaver to the dam, though.
yeah.
Like I kind of
Well,
feel like,
maybe you could say it's an extension in some way, but we don't in nature there are animals who protect each other and look after each other,
yeah.
and so we tend to take the really cruel bits of nature, and non-vegans will use that as a justification to be gruesome,
Yeah.
but we don't want the kind of nicer bits of the protecting, of the looking after, of the companionship, of working together, and those things. So I think you can still have that understanding, okay, yeah, animals would do these horrible things, but it's not that I know better, it's just that I know that that would be bad for them, and I don't
Mm.
want to do that bad thing.
Okay, I have a theory that you know how like rape is found in nature because humans rape,
Yes.
animals rape, everybody rapes. Okay, not, but I think it's a biological experience that is environmentally impacted. It's also normalized in a sense. So like people won't qualify like X as sexual assault because X doesn't come under category of
Hmm.
construct, but in every description is sexual assault, right?
Hmm.
So like it's interesting that we when we're having a perception difference can change the way we look at consent. And I know
Yes.
consent is really the conversation that we're having and I really think consent is like a huge value of mine. So I'm trying to think of like the consent element in relation to this and how when we think about eradicating rape from social culture, it has to be social culture.
Hmm.
Because I do think human beings are like little biological creatures and given to their environments might not know not to rape. Like I don't think it's known to us. I think it's taught to us. And then we have better relationships with our biological experience, which allows us to like not do bad things. But of course, like some of us are also, there's a predisposition to like not being in that kind of energy and then maybe being in that kind of energy. So,
Mm.
I wonder if meat eating is sort of similar, where it's like you evolved to not need it anymore. Not that there was ever a need for rape, but you know what I'm saying? Like our
Mhm.
ancestors maybe didn't understand why this needed to be eradicated from our social expectation.
Mhm.
And we're still working on it. Like it's not
Mhm.
even here yet. It's still so
No.
normalized. So like we're not even there yet. So for all those people that are like, everyone knows it's wrong to rape. No, they don't.
Mhm.
No, they don't. So now we're working on that still. And I wonder if it's just like where we are in the timeline. And I wonder if veganism is similar. Does that spark any thought for you?
Yeah, obviously, it's the case that social norms do guide what we say is right or wrong. And there's, some, cultures, countries, they have a social norm, and you may engage in it and think this is absolutely fine, and then
Mm,
you come across another social norm, and you're like, oh no, actually that one's better.
yeah,
And I think that's the great thing about being online and talking to people from different places in the world, different experiences, because we can all have conversations more so. It's not in our kind of little bubbles about how we should progress, and is it progressing. Some people think veganism is a regression, because
right.
I don't even know why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we are in this moment right now where we are just trying to get people to understand that animals, we need to like deprogram in a way that animals are ours to use. We have the dominion over them to do what we want with them.
Sure.
Um, so I think we're in that, and then we'll have more and more people who acknowledge that, who practice that as a result, and really understand that, and then we can change the laws. You don't
Mm-mm.
need everyone doing it. You just need a vocal,
Right.
passionate, strong group to do that.
That's very true. That is
Mhm.
very true, actually. Okay. I'm not okay. I think in this moment, I'm having like this. First of all, this is a fabulous conversation. I'm really enjoying it. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. I think I haven't had like the switch over, the bubble pop, or the embodied experience, but I do think that I wouldn't be surprised that in 100 years, veganism was not only the norm, but we
Mhm.
will look back and think like, "Ooh,
This was atrocious. We
my
will think,
bad. Like
yeah.
we should have done that." But
Mhm.
even though I logically can think that, I'm still see it's not my body yet.
No, I
You
don't
know?
think the I don't think it will come from this conversation. I think one day you'll be like, I don't know, sitting on the toilet, and you'll be
Yeah.
like, animals really aren't ours. They've got nothing. You'll be like, who
Yeah.
am I? Like, why did
Yeah.
I even? That's not flesh. That's violence. Like,
Mhm.
it would
Yeah.
just happen. It would. I think I could see that happening from the things that you were saying, and there were things that kind of divert from what veganism is, and I was just like, okay, well, I can see that from what she's saying. It's she, her, right? Sorry,
Yeah.
I just
Mhm.
said
Yeah,
my.
yeah, yeah.
I can see that she's having this kind of realization, and it's coming quite quickly, actually, because for me, I suppose like it happened quickly in a way, but I didn't understand for a very long time. It takes me a while to understand
Sure.
things. Um, so my behavior changed, but my beliefs and my understanding weren't there. But now I think I have a bit more of an informed position where I can have these conversations and be like, the whole thing is rotten. It's not like, oh, we do terrible things to animals, like we factory farm them, and we cut off their body parts so they'll taste nicer, and
Yeah.
we gas them. But like, even if I pay respects, and I see all these homesteaders on my Instagram
Yeah.
feed,
Yeah.
and they're saying stuff like, oh, the most ethical way to consume meat is to raise them yourselves. They're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about raising an animal, uh, looking them in the eye and killing them. And to me now,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
before, I would have thought that's so respectful, but now I'm like, I that to me that just sounds like a horror movie. I've
Yeah.
seen I've
Yeah.
seen horror movies where someone's been the nicest person, and then suddenly they've taken them to the basement to kill them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it just there is a perspective shift, but I think it's one of the toughest probably
Mm.
because we call it carnism. It is so ingrained. It's everywhere. Like even we think we can crop animals, dogs' ears because it's more
Ugh.
aesthetically
Ugh.
pleasing.
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
we think that we can, subjugate them to all these things like testing.
Yeah.
We think we can do that to them. We think we can, like, recently this woman picked up a wombat.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna ask you, did you see the wombat lady?
Yeah, and took them away, and it's just like, like, who do you think you are picking up that baby? Like,
Yeah.
go away. Like, but that is carnism has said they're ours for a funny video.
Yeah.
They it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if the mother is panicking that her baby's being taken away from her.
Sure.
We already do that in the dairy industry. We already do that to pigs. We already do that to all these
Well,
animals.
and
So
that's we brought up that story on stream, and I was asking people, I was like, we're all really mad at her, right?
Mhm.
Who ate meat today? And they're like, who ate meat today? And it's like, I understand. So I saw a video. This is okay, a combination of my audience encouraging me, but I saw two different TikToks. One TikTok was a guy who said, hey, I know you keep like doing this thing where you're cutting your plastic because you don't want to kill the turtles in the ocean, but you're eating the fish. And I was like,
Yeah.
rude. And then, okay, I saw a second video. I'm sure you've seen him. He's a guy who goes around sampling out dog, but
Oh,
it's
I've
not
done
dog.
that. Dog
Okay.
meat. Yeah. Oh, it's organic dog meat.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
dog and whatever. And then seeing people's faces like, did you just force me to eat dog? And I was like,
Mhm.
and like that, and I have, of course, that raised Western belief that you
Yeah.
don't eat dogs. And I saw a TikTok once of a butcher butchering a dog, and I was like, and I was like
Mhm.
mortified. But my brother raises animals, and I've helped him slaughter animals. Like I've been there, I've packed their meat, I've eaten them same day. Like I've raised them, we've named them, and then
Mhm.
we kill them. But it's one of those things where, yeah, like I think about it now, I'm like, there was so much like I have no bad feelings about that.
Mhm.
But I wonder moving forward. So okay, I went on this journey where I did 30 days vegetarian and then 30 days vegan. And I did that for two reasons. One, to slowly move my body out of the food that I was eating every day, which, by the way, the amount of chickens that I've died for this week, like, girls, it's a lot of chickens. Like, I have eaten a lot of chicken in my life.
I feel bad, but ate a lot of chickens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
you're
terrible.
lifting, right? Are you doing
Yeah,
body? Okay,
I'm trying.
awesome. Okay,
I'm
same.
very new to
No, say
it.
I'm slow but steady wins the race. And like the amount of protein and like the getting protein in, you chicken, you eat meat, all these things. Which, by the way, now I'm realizing how much protein comes from tofu and plants and stuff. I'm like, girl,
Mhm.
move over.
I get
Okay.
140 grams a day.
Move over, baby.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did that because I had a feeling that I might not go back to meat to some
Mhm.
extent. And so I went vegetarian then vegan, or for the challenge, because I wasn't sure that I'd ever have a chance to go vegetarian again.
Okay.
And I did that because I try to predict myself, even though I never know what future me is going to do.
Mhm.
And now I'm at this point where I don't want to own a label that, if people start holding me accountable to a construct I don't understand, it's going to trigger my PDA, and then I'm just not going to do it. So like
Yeah,
I'm trying really
yeah.
hard to like own proper labels here. And I think right now I eat as ethically as I can. But I haven't been buying meat. I haven't been buying dairy. I haven't been buying any of those products. I have bought like a candy bar or something, and now even I switched over to vegan chocolate, and I've almost gotten everything down to like no animal products. But I live with a person who's on their own journey right now, and I don't want them
Mhm.
to feel like they have to all of a sudden, Brittany made this decision, so you have to get on board. It's more like they and I work to harm reduce in our own ways, and wherever they end up, maybe vegan one day, none of my business. But like, I hope, we're always together as a team, right? That's my goal, is to make sure we're ethically on the same page. Um, I've been like, I'll taste their food and stuff and that has meat in it. And I noticed the other day, I was like, it's good, but I feel really bad eating it.
Mhm.
And I realized it was because I keep seeing the documentaries in my head. And until
Yeah.
I had that visual, I couldn't conceptualize like what was happening.
Yeah.
And I really needed the visual, like the actual, like I keep seeing the salmon in my head with the lice on their bodies, or I keep
Oh,
seeing
the
them,
parasites.
the
Yeah.
parasites, or I keep seeing them all fucked up, and I keep seeing like the cow chasing, like, her
the
young, or
baby.
like, and I'm
Hmm.
just like sitting here and my brain is like, "Oh, yeah, there's something that isn't harmonious happening here. Something out of sync." And
Hmm.
it's been a really interesting experience. And listen, I don't want to overpromise to my audience or anybody else cuz I get it. I don't know where I'm going to end up, but I will say there is something definitely interesting here
Yes.
that I find interesting about, like, I want to be as positively in sync with, like, myself and everything outside of myself as I can to harm reduce,
Hmm.
right? So I guess with all of that monologue said, in relation to dating and relationships, I just saw plant-based news talk about this. How do you feel about dating somebody non-vegan?
I've said before that, like, if I can't see, like, I don't get into relationships with the plan of changing people. I think that's probably a bad thing to do. Like, but if I can't see that that person is going to make a connection, like, I'm going to struggle to have a
Right,
connection with them because we're going to be on different wavelengths in that way.
right.
So obviously, you're not obligated to date anyone, and some people, see it as a good way to expose an individual to veganism itself, and your partner's going to do what they're going to do. But for me, if I know that they're doing that and there's no onus to learn, there's no onus to stop or consider the animals, not for me. But
Right. Makes sense. I think that makes total
yeah,
sense. Like, I
yeah.
know my partner and I will be married years in August, and like we started off on a basic requirement of values, like a basic belief in harm reduction, and something that I don't think a lot of marriages probably have or relationships have, which is like an intention to grow.
Hmm.
So we have to make a concerted effort to be more introspective and extrospective. So they're on their own journey. I don't want to speak for them, but they're very like supportive, open-minded, working on their own level of harm reduction. And what's cool about the process is knowing that there is actual data to impact our relationship things. Like, this
Hmm.
isn't just a matter of like changing people's minds to me. It's a matter of where does the data take us. And
Yes.
so the data that's coming out, though it's limited, is showing like an incredible reason to go vegan, like from a health perspective, a planet perspective, an animal perspective. Why do vegans of why do the reaction I'm getting from vegans, why do they discourage focusing on the environmental versus the animal? Like, why do they? Because I feel like
Hmm.
I'm just like, my brain's like, how do I get people to like be chill? And I'm like, okay, guys, it's literally a benefit to you to go vegan.
So
Like,
I would say what you'd say is plant-based for the environment because that's the diet. But
mm,
the thing is, it would be like saying anti-sexist for the environment. It doesn't make sense because there might be a reason, like a good
okay,
outcome
so
of that
veganism,
philosophy.
yeah,
Yeah,
veganism is specifically about animals.
about
Do you know
animals.
this is the first time in my whole life I've ever heard this? Do you understand? I've dated vegans, and it was never about the animals. Like, this is so new for me. This is a bubble pop. Like, I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what?
yeah. We're about.
Literally,
Yeah.
I'm so shocked.
No,
Okay,
yeah, as you said, this is what I mean about making the connection because we say these things, we repeat these things because
yeah,
people are saying them, but we don't internalize them. You said in your video it's a philosophy, so you would know as a like it's a philosophy. So of course, in the environmental health
yeah.
ramifications, they don't. What's the environmental health ramification for not greyhound racing or not? Not horse racing, not
Yeah, yeah,
animal
yeah.
testing. So it's what we'd call like a category error.
I love that.
Yeah. So
Damn.
you say being a plant based person, eating plant based diet. Yeah, absolutely. The environmental benefits and it seems the health benefits as well. The things that you avoid by not consuming these carcinogens and
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But the reason I focus on the animals and the animals only is like I did an article recently, and I said 7 reasons to go vegan, and the first one was the one the only one you need is the animals. That's it. But of course, there are these positive benefits to doing the better thing of leaving animals be, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's I think my brain's not quite there yet, but yet I can see, yeah, that's going to be a new way for me to have the conversations with you, because my whole life, like, the bubble I came from, the people that I was around, even living in Seattle, which was so progressive. I ate so much vegan. Lived in Seattle. Oh my gosh. But all of them was always about vegan food. Why did
Yeah, that's
nobody
the
ever
pro.
talk about animals?
I think there's been like a kind of, because food is so largely part of our day-to-day process, I think people have thought, okay, well, it would be helpful to talk about the food because it's just every single day a choice to make, sort of thing. But unfortunately, people don't realize just the extent of how animals are used.
Yeah,
Like they're used in
definitely.
every industry, at every aspect. um like that's what was a planting a seed for me when I was younger, was learning about bear biling, extracting, putting bears in cages and extracting bile from their abdomen, I can't say that word, to use the bile as a medicine. And
Oh,
so that's why I thought, oh my goodness, this cruelty, it's so horrible. It happens somewhere, not here though. And then yes, the realizing that the animal oppression is just happening everywhere. It's happening. I'm doing it. I'm thinking it. I'm perpetuating it. um yeah,
can
that.
can you talk more about animal testing? Like, because even when as a teenager, I made an effort to always like check my shampoo bottles and be like, not
Mhm.
tested on animals. But then I'd hang out at my mom and dad's house every weekend for a barbecue. So, like,
Yes.
could you talk about that, about medicine? How do you think we will find ways? Ooh, but like food is medicine. So maybe the hope, because honestly, I have fibromyalgia and taking dairy out of my diet has like changed my relationship with health. So, how does that look? How do you tell people that are chronically ill and sick these medications that might save if they're tested on animals?
Well, obviously, if it's saving your life, like we talk about the definition again with the possible and
Oh,
practicable. Like I'm not going to tell someone to die. Like, like I want to read something that my friend who's chronically ill, they've done something that I'm doing an article on, and they have EDS, POTS, and MECFS, and they're kind of how they became vegan, and yeah, and OCD. Um, but yeah, with animal testing, vivisection, my understanding and is that animals are just used because they're cheap and they're easy to, like they use beagles, for example, and pigs and mice because they are easy to use, they're
wow.
cheap, and especially with beagles, they're like very forgiving, so you can
Oh,
hurt them again and again and again, and they will. And I don't think in scientific research, again, I might be wrong, but I don't think it's the quality of the data, it's the quantity. So if you can buy 30 mice to experiment on them, it's and the problem is, if we're not seeing animals as these individuals who have intrinsic value, why wouldn't you test on
yeah.
mice? So that it's kind of like these things happen as a result of seeing them as something, not someone. Um, and we have, they're making like skin grafts and everything like that, and there's all these sciencey things that they're making alternatives, in research, because people are understanding. We have, Camp Beagle, Free the MBR Beagles in the UK, where these beagles are bred to be tested on, and there's more and more awareness that animals are being tested on. And obviously there's speciesism because, oh, if they're a dog, you don't test on them, they're doggies,
Right, right, right.
So yeah, I think that's why it happens, because obviously we want to progress and find that, medicines and everything that works, so we use them on animals, but obviously genetically they're different to us, so that can actually sometimes be counterintuitive. I've
Yeah.
heard scientists talk about how it can be a complete waste of time. I think there was some animal being tested on, like, I think dogs can't contract HIV, and they were doing HIV testing on, I could be wrong again, but yeah, it's just another one of those things where we can use them, so we do.
Yeah. Actually, can you speak to that as well? Like, do you have a background in any of this? Like, is any of this coming from like I went to school for this, or is this just a personal?
No, just it's just a personal endeavor of, like, I wanted to learn everything, because as soon as I went vegan, I had all these things thrown at me. Okay, well, we
Perfect.
need to do this. We need to,
Okay.
I'm sure you're seeing it just in the comments of, like, um, so I learned. So I'm not speaking from any area of
Well,
expertise.
that's perfect because I'm not either. Like I'm
Mhm.
just a person at the end of the day, which I think most people are. And so the question is, how do we as people have a better relationship? Our understanding of harm reduction with valuing individual life, well, moving things forward, because it does take, I think, the collective
Mhm.
backing the people doing the research and recognizing that we should be researching. That's actually what I thought was most shocking, is the amount of meat eaters who didn't even want to look into the science of the
Yeah.
vegan being possibly better for people in general, plant-based being better for the planet and everything, and for people, like for
Mm.
us. Like the irony of them being like, oh, animals are second to us, but also I'm not going to invest in research for us.
Yeah.
That's shocking to me, because I'm like, hey, where's your like self-preservation? Like we're talking about just human health in general could be benefited from plant-based, and they're like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean no? I even when I don't I try not to talk about my progressive stuff with my conservative family, just because there's a lot of, issues. And I mentioned to my mom briefly a couple of months ago that I was like, "Hey, I need this family recipe that's vegetarian. Like I need the vegetarian version." And right away my mom, cuz she's smart, she clocked it. She goes, "What are you doing? Are you taking meat out of your diet? Don't do it. You need meat." And I was like, "Okay, I just wanted the recipe. Like I already understand." And she goes, "Well, I listen. Everybody needs meat. You need it. Like, look, I'm looking into the carnivore diet." I was like, "Don't." Once I
Oh
hear
my
carnivore
god.
diet, my brain shuts down, because I don't know why everyone is obsessed with this diet that's obviously so bad for you. But like, that's the thing. It's trendy.
That's the thing, and I think the problem is with veganism because it was associated with a diet and is heavily associated
Yeah.
with the diet. Diets are temporary. So, but like your ethics, they kind of grow with you. You don't. It's rare that someone's like, I don't think murder's okay. Oh, suddenly I've
Yeah.
fallen into it. I think murder's fine. It doesn't really happen. So, yeah, it's a lot of misinformation, and it's easy to. I thought for a while it was just kind of this diet, and I didn't really think any further. But I just happened to get into the right crowd of activists who were animal rights oriented, and they did a lot of vivisection stuff, animal testing. And then I could really kind of understand, oh, it's all the animal use. Um, so yeah, it's hard to get past all that. And if, people are thinking like the carnivore diet is
Yeah.
is suitable. We are in an age of lots of information, and with that comes lots of misinformation.
Yeah.
So we're constantly fighting it. But I do think it will be the case that I think what will happen is the loud people who are like, no, I can't give up meat, they will be voted out, and then in the future, people will look back and think, oh my god, why did people exploit animals? And they'll understand exploitation, but it's hard to understand it when you're in it, when you're seeing their flesh as something to eat,
Sure.
when you're seeing their secretions as something to use. It's hard to really make that connection. That's what I say about
Yeah.
the connection making.
Well, it's fascinating too, because I wonder if the exploitation of animals will be easier or harder for people to process over exploitation of any other industry that occurs. I guess in relation to people, like the Seaspiracy documentary. I don't know how you feel about it,
Mhm,
but in that documentary, they were talking about like fishermen like dying at sea, or slavery having direct
mhm,
like connections to the fish industry, and like that kind of stuff is like, even for people it's so scary, let alone the animals. But like even for people it's scary, and this to me is not the goal. This is where we're at, but it is not the goal. And so what would it look like when we reach sort of a better version of life? And again, it's not really for you or me, right? It's for the future. And the problem is, like, I do think people who are focused on activism and then focused on data and growing with that new data, I do think they're probably just like technically better at like looking into the future. But I really think it's hard for people. So then my compassion and my empathy for people where they're at, like I understand, like, you can't even fathom that
mhm.
this is a possibility. And so my brain is like, okay, how do I get you to even consider it? Like fast fashion is something that I bought so much fast fashion in my life and moved away from it recently. Where I was like, okay, we're done with that in like a real way. Like, but that's also really difficult because everything is like fast fashion right now. That's like really what everything's turned into.
Mhm.
So then I was like, okay, how do we harm reduce? Again, it's not about being perfect, right? Or somebody on one of my videos was like, "You're wearing fast fashion right now," and I was like, "Yes. Do you think I'm gonna throw away the clothes I bought so it can end up in a landfill just because I'm not buying fast fashion?" Same
Yeah.
way that when I went vegan, I had meat product or honey products in the house that I just didn't eat or my partner ate. But then after the vegan 30 days was done, I'm like finishing off things that I had, like honey and stuff that I
Mhm.
had that I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna finish this. I'm not gonna throw it away because I don't believe in food waste like that. Like I just don't understand why I would do that. But
Mhm.
then I understand that they're like I was watching some vegan YouTuber and she was like, okay, go through all your products and throw everything away that's not vegan. I was like, I'm sorry, are we rich? Like, I'm sorry, like this feels so inappropriate for me. What do you think about that? Like, is that, is there like a practicality to that? That just doesn't make any sense to me.
To test it, if if um if you had the milk or like some flesh, right? And then someone told you, "Oh, that's dog milk, that's dog flesh." Would you throw it in the bin or would you kind of just carry on eating it?
I feel like I'd carry on eating, right?
Okay, so for me, I would just at that time, I wouldn't have seen a dog as a food, so I would have thrown their body in the bin.
Yeah, I
Do
think my brain sees all animals as possibly, even
Okay.
dogs.
Yeah, my brain just is
Yeah, my
like, "No,
brain
you're not
still
food."
sees no, I'm the kind of girl that's like, "Put it in front of me and I will try it." Like, I'm that person. So, like,
Like a human leg.
I mean, honestly, though, like,
Yeah,
is it
would you?
like yeah, kinda, like, a little bit, but not because, like,
Just to
I'm like, "Where
taste
did
it.
it come from?" Yeah, like, kinda just to say that, like, I did it, but also I'm trying to grow out of that, like, instinct to be like, "I gotta try that." What is that? I gotta try that. But yeah, like, I'm not grossed out by people or animals or flesh or feeding, or I really think I'm like a animal. So my brain's like, "Would an animal enjoy this?" I don't know, do I enjoy this? But then I think about how to harm reduce. So if the leg was ethically sourced, if it was my own leg, would I try a piece of it to see if I would vomit?
Mhm.
Maybe. But like it's not like something I'm eager to try. Like I don't look forward to trying it versus like I used to be like, "Ooh, I can't wait to have this lamb," or "I can't wait to try this thing." I don't think that way about dogs. Like I'm not like, "Oh, can't wait to try a dog." I'm more like, "Would I try a dog? It disgusts me, but would I try it? And why wouldn't I try a dog, but I would try a lamb?"
Mhm.
And
And
then,
I say, like, because you said, "Oh, like, gross." I don't mean I would like, though it is gross,
hmm.
I wouldn't not do it because it's gross. It's just because I don't see them as I just don't
Oh, an
categorize them as
option.
food. Yeah, they're not an
Right. There's
option.
still an option in my
Like,
head, for
I know
sure.
Pika's a thing and eating things that aren't, like, eating things that aren't typically edible. Pika?
Oh, I never heard that. Okay.
Yeah, I know that's a thing, but, like, I just wouldn't it'd just be, like, kind of I guess it's the kind of maybe the spiritual essence of, like, that would not be respectful for me to do that to them, I just bury the body, like,
Sure.
or don't eat them, do you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
ho where I go with it.
Okay, so I guess like first I do think our obviously our bodies aren't rejecting the flesh, right? Like I just can't think of a human as an animal, right? Like our certain animals work with us, right? And certain animals don't. Is that
Mhm,
true? So like some perspective, if there was beef in the fridge, I'd eat it. But if there was a human leg in the fridge, first of all, why is there a human leg in my fridge? You know what I mean? And is dog even poisonous to us in the same way that some meats have been and caused infections, right? So then
mhm,
there's some question there. I'm not trying to like I'm trying to say like how do I feel as like a person who exists and as a thing that consumes? And what is an option for consumption? That's the question. Is like almost I think realistically like human and dog meat aren't options because I've chosen them not to be, but are they literally not options? It's like what does that mean? So in the same way I want to extend that to other animals. Like if dog isn't an option simply because I've chosen not to and I've decided to connect to dogs the way that my
mhm.
culture has taught me, can I connect to other animals that way? And I do
While
think
doing that, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I do think like my cat, she's sleeping right now in her little bed to the left of me, right? She's like sitting there and she's like, and my cat takes like high priority.
Mhm.
Like she takes the most priority. Like I always tell my partner, like if there's a fire in the house, we go for the cat first. We
Yep.
know where her carrier is. We know how to get her out of the house. Like even if it was my cat or the neighbor, like I love my neighbor. I don't know who they are, but like I've known my cat for over a decade.
Mhm.
Like I prioritize my cat in same way that like, there's like this idea that I've had in practice in which she's it's not that she's an animal, so she takes second to the human neighbor. It's that I know her and I have a connection to her.
Connection, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel similarly to other animals where if I have a connection with them and then I prioritize them, then it would be harder for me to like not have that relationship with them. But I don't have it with all animals. But I don't extend that to humans. So even if I don't have a connection with a human, I don't think we should kill it.
Exactly. People say, "Oh, I don't care about like an animal." Like, and it's just like, yeah, you don't have the capacity to care about the 8 billion humans on
Sure.
Earth. It
True.
doesn't mean you get to kill them.
Right, right.
Um,
I agree with
I
that.
suppose I have the I've been to vigils, seen animals just before they're going to be slaughtered. I've seen animals in farms. I've been to farms, and so I've managed to look some animals in the eye and make that further connection. So, you know, I'm just trying to imagine if I hadn't, because obviously you've had that experience of
Sure.
slaughtering animals. Did you kill them yourself?
I've only killed one animal myself, and I was honestly like, didn't enjoy the process.
Yeah. So,
Hmm.
like, there's when you're not the one doing it, I suppose there's all these kind of like things your brain would do to kind of protect you from the
Yeah.
fact you're doing that to them. Like, but if someone else is doing it and you're not participating in that, you can take yourself away and go, yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And you can, you know, really have a moment to connect with the animal and want to save them. And I'm just trying to think what it'd be like if I hadn't experienced that. But I still think, yeah, I don't know. I've always just thought that I'm not special. Like, maybe that's, maybe I should think it a little bit, a
No,
little
I
bit.
don't think anyone's
But
special too. I
no,
think we're just here.
but when I'm sad, I'm really sad, and when I'm
Yeah.
happy, I'm really happy, and they are as well.
Mm.
And like, I can't not make the connection with them, really. Like, and it's kind of horrific that there was a point where I thought I was connected to them, but I was literally paying for their bodies.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I do think there will be a light bulb moment for you, and you won't. I don't think you'll even consider them as like like it would be like more like the human. Like, I have decided not to
Yeah.
see if I have the leg in the fridge and it's
Hmm.
like illegal to do so and everything.
Yeah.
I wouldn't anyway. I'd put that in the
Yeah.
bin or bury it.
Okay, this is interesting because I remember when I was young, I was like really pro capital punishment. I was like, kill a motherfucker. I was like really violent. That was always I was like very USA, very Republican. And then I left the bubble and I like had my little bubble pops and I realized like, oh, and now I'm at this stage where I'm like, no murder. And like
Mhm,
everyone's like, wait, Brittany, like we have to kill people. I was like, there's justified self-defense, but even then you should mourn. I said, but we shouldn't be eager to kill people who have done wrong. Like we shouldn't be
mhm,
excited to torture people or to like if so I know I went through those stages with humans,
mhm,
and even with abortion, like I really think there's a huge difference depending when the development is in utero. Like there's a
mhm,
huge difference between, 1 week and fucking, 9 months in. Like we're not talking about the same thing. We're not having the same conversation. So I
mhm,
know that when we have these conversations, we're trying to have a deeper meaning existing. I really
mhm,
think that's where veganism as a philosophy allows us to go. Even though I'm gonna try to view it outside the construct of the people arguing for it. Who I feel like the way they argue for it makes a lot of sense if I was there with them. But as an
mhm.
outsider, is harder to get on board. You're doing a great job. Like you're
Oh,
making a lot
thank
of
you.
sense to my brain.
Okay, good.
But I think that's why I think your channel has been specifically different. Is you What are you doing different? I think you're just being very compassionate through the process. Maybe like there's probably a lot of that in a sense.
Maybe it's
Um,
just you can smell my anxiety and feel bad for me.
maybe.
You're like,
You know,
"Oh, I must listen to her, poor thing."
well, now I have to become vegan or I'll hurt your feelings. So
You
like
will hurt my feelings,
I'm
and
gonna
you will
have to
hurt the
become vegan.
animals' feelings. So you need to,
True. Here we
yeah.
go. So like there's something to be said about that process that I think I am going through. Now I can't overpromise and I don't want to overpromise to anybody. Who knows what future Britty will do? But what I want to do now, current Britty, is I want to have a deeper relationship with existing, a deeper relationship with existence, so everything outside myself. I want to have a better relationship with what it means to prioritize like harm reduction and what direction to take that into. And I've been really, it hasn't been the hardest thing in the world, like going faux vegan, because like all my hair products and stuff, at least everything in my house basically is labeled vegan, whether or
Mhm.
not they're truly ethically sourced vegan or like don't have third party entities, animal testing or
Oh,
something
like
like that.
parent companies,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Like I'm right
Yeah.
now, my focus is to make sure everything is kind of vegan and
Mhm.
then start there. And I
Mhm.
think like for a lot of people that's not good enough because that's fine. I don't think I've ever lived my life trying to be good enough for anybody but my values. But I would say that my values are heading in a direction in which as long as I can minimize exploitation, like that's what I'm aiming for, even though I can never fully do it. Right? And so like, I don't want to say is that good enough? Can I call myself vegan? But I want to say like even if that's not good enough, I think that's pretty damn good. And that's where I would like to introduce that idea to people in their own lives. Like, I don't need you to go vegan. I need you harm reduction in a way that you don't even understand how easy it is. It's so easy, you don't have to think about it. Especially if you're in America. Girl, I'm in Croatia, and let me tell you, the amount of vegan pre-products that are done, it's not there. And yet it is still pretty easy.
Mhm.
Like, it's still pretty easy. Well, also I can cook. You cook.
Yeah, I can cook.
See, that's the
But
advantage.
when I first went vegan, I was eating plain spaghetti and cucumbers because I didn't know what I was doing. I literally was like, "I need to stop right now. I don't care if I waste away. I'm going to do it." And then obviously
Yeah.
I learned that yeah, like some of the cheapest foods are like
Oh,
plant-based y-
100%.
and if I literally like couldn't get the vegan chicken or the vegan hot dogs or whatever, then I would just eat vegetables.
Yeah, and which are bomb, by the way, like,
Mm,
culturally universal as well, like, I'm a Syrian, and, like, so many of our breakfasts are just, like, vegetables and just, like, like, pickled things and things that are accessible to you, you don't even think about it, and so,
mhm,
yeah, I think people I don't know, like, I found out this could be wrong on the numbers because it's a dated documentary, I think now, but I heard that, like, 1 to 6% that might be overestimating of the population is vegan. And like, I'm like, man, you guys are like the trans people of the animal world. We're like, the world is freaking out over this 1% of people. Like, they're the worst people who have ever existed. I'm like, it's like not even most people. And so, like, how do you feel about being a complete minority in that sense?
well, it kind of sucks because it's just like obviously then trillions of animals are being killed for
Yeah.
the majority. So, and yeah, it's weird, like just how you would have like an anti-exploitation kind of mindset, growing up, and then realize that you're not actually practicing that, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and that it's not like it is still easy to just avoid that, but it's not like it's baked into so many things that you have to choose. You shouldn't be able to choose whether or not you exploit an animal. No, that
Yeah.
shouldn't even be in the question. So yeah, it sucks. But I don't know if you've seen the mockumentary called Carnage, but
Mm-mm.
it it,
I don't
it
think so.
goes. It's like a UK. Simon Amstel made this. He's a comedian. He made this mockumentary about how they laugh at you first, and then secondly they really oppose you, and then thirdly they are with you, and
Okay.
it follows that. And yeah, there's a lot of um, noise against a minority, but it makes sense because it makes people uncomfortable. They don't want animals to be put in these positions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I do think a lot of people do have an exploitative mindset. I
Ooh.
do think we do think, oh, I can do what I want. Like we do it with humans as well.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think going vegan really helps undo that. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I was changing audios and my audio setting was wrong apparently. Hopefully, guys, it's better. Hopefully you can hear us both. Okay. I will say that I think that's where I try to accept that like humans are their own evolved animal and they're having their own experience and then they are where they're at. Cause I think we are so much more violent than we give ourselves credit for. We are so much more destructive than we give ourselves credit for. Like we are so much more exploitative than we give ourselves credit for. And I don't know how you feel, but like just as an American who's like, just as a person who lives in different places and I'm sitting here like watching this administration go the way that it is, like it's so obvious to me that human beings have yet to confront even their most basic problems and like that problem is us, like we as individuals, like as much as it is as a community. Um and so I struggle, I guess, to um well, I try not to struggle by holding on to the attachment that people will make be different, which is why I try not to make prescriptions, but I try instead to make sure that I'm changing.
That's the thing. That's if people, a lot of people like just become quite like, oh well, people aren't going to bother, so I won't bother. I think it's more. It's not so much
Right.
bad people doing bad things. I think it's good people doing nothing about the bad that's happening and just letting that happen. So,
Yeah.
being open to trying to hear more from the vegan perspective and learning about how it's not a diet, how it's
Right.
it's about exploitation and being anti oppression of those individuals.
Okay, yeah.
It's good that you're at that stage of being open to that, because I do think it can help with how you view these animals.
Right, right, right. And I can see, okay, so I'm it's clicking the more you talk too, why you can't call yourself vegan like until like you have that embodied once that if that embodied experience happens, I could identify with vegan and know that it's correct. But because I'm not having it yet, I know that that's not correct. So plant-based makes much more sense
It
in terms
makes
of
more
categorization.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's because
definitely.
yes, you may practice it. Say, for example, you didn't have the cross on and
Yeah,
you had all the but yeah, it just doesn't really make so much sense because it's the philosophy the
right.
philosophy and philosophies are to be believed and practiced.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it doesn't make too much sense in that case.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
need the ethics, you need the understanding of the animals and not seeing them
Yeah.
as commodities.
So
It's not
now
vegans aren't doing that to be douchebags. They're just doing it because it doesn't make sense. That's
yeah.
and obviously then because you said earlier, why was everyone talking about health and food? Well, because people don't actually talk about what veganism is. And even
Yeah.
I'm probably not explaining it to the best way. There's a few ways to explain it, but fundamentally the crux of it is the exploitation, breeding them into
Yeah.
existence in the first place to commodify them and use them, and see them as ours, is the fundamental problem. Like it's like with your cat, you're their guardian. You're not though we call like people owners,
Right, right,
but
right.
you you you,
We
you
call her the
don't.
third roommate.
Yeah, the third roommate. There we go. You're a guardian. You tend to them and,
Oh,
and look after them, not
speaking
to.
of which, hold on. She's getting up. She needs to be let out of the room. Hold on. Seconds. Yes, our life revolves around her. Like our whole everything we plan, our travel plans, where we go, how long do we leave the house per day, everything is dictated around her needs.
And I think that's a great way to go about it. Like obviously there's a bias there because you have a connection, but when you have a connection with an individual, you have an opportunity to just see their personalities and
Yeah.
see their best interests. And there is a potential for a connection and a friend in everyone. And you wouldn't think to eat her. I don't even want you thinking about eating her, but you wouldn't
Yeah.
think, oh, she's food.
No,
I
no, no, no,
might
no.
have a little bit of her, and
Ugh.
like even if that even if she wasn't your best mate,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
she wouldn't be
Yeah.
to use. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just putting it in that context. I think a lot of things cloud our judgment, but literally, if I'm confused about a vegan thing, I put it in the human context. It's not so much the golden rule because there might be things
Right.
that you would want that you wouldn't want for others. Maybe the platinum rule, you could
Sure.
call it. But yeah, it makes a whole lot more sense when you do those things, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned that in my video because my brother has a dog and we're very attached to our companions. And I was like, okay, survival situation, you're out in the snow with him. Do you eat him or not? And he's like, bro, I'm not gonna eat my dog. And I was like, okay, but like he's there for you. And he's like, no, he's there for me. Like I'm there for him. And how am I gonna be there for him if I eat him? And I was like, and then we sat there. I was like, oh. And then my little brother at the time was like, I could eat him. And I was like, oh. And he's like, I could do it. I could do it. And then now he's been rooming with him and living with him. He's like, I take it back. I couldn't do it. And I was like, that's interesting because we grew up very conservative, very like, not a hunter family at all, but a meat eating
Mhm.
family. And a lot of Assyrian dishes are meat based. A lot of our family recipes are meat based. And so we grew up in this culture of like consuming, consuming, consuming. Like meat is so prevalent. We're so gluttonous as a community, like American, like the world, not just like
Mhm.
Assyrians, but like the world as humans. We're so gluttonous that I always want to move away from hedonism and we don't want to be gluttonous. We want to move away from these things. But I think it's hard for us to imagine eating people we know. But
Mhm.
when it's a stranger, it feels easier. Just like, if a genocide is happening over there, doesn't matter. It's not happening to people over where I know.
Mhm.
It's like out of sight, out of mind. And I think that's why the documentaries were such good visual learners for me. Cause I was like, okay, it's not out of sight now. Now it's in
Mhm.
mind. Now I'm seeing the visuals. And for some reason, growing up watching PETA stuff was never enough for my brain. It never clicked. I think because, and this could be the autistic way my brain works, I shut down when I see things that feel like prescriptions or like heavy
Lectures.
model. Yeah,
Mm.
I'm like, girl, do not tell me what to do, girl. And like,
Mhm.
so then my brain's like, no. And then,
Literally like the same. I'm
oh,
very demand avoidant as a person, and that's why people are like, how are you vegan if you're demand avoidant? It's just like, because why the animals are like, they never were mine to use, never.
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
never
yeah.
were. I made that mistake. So I have to stop that, even though I'm demand avoidant. I've got people in my life who didn't want to go vegan as well because they were demand avoidant and felt like it was a label and restrictive. And that's what I wanted to talk about. My friend who I've got the article segment from. It's the title was going to be like seven people overcoming challenges as vegans. Things that they thought were going to be challenges, like they have OCD, EDS, POTS, MECFS, and the crux of what they were saying was, I thought I'd really struggle and I'd see it as another restriction, but it really when I made the connection and I put it into perspective that they were never mine to use in the first place, I realized that how could it be a restriction? It was never mine to have. Just like in Western societies, dogs were never to eat. Yes,
Yeah,
we exploit them in other ways, but they were never to eat. So we never think of them as food. That's not even a consideration. So it's not a restrictive diet if you don't add dogs into your diet. You wouldn't
yeah,
call it that.
yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was quite poignant. I really, respect. Like I use them as an example through their permission.
Right, right, right.
Of, someone who really thought that they wouldn't be able to do this, but upon making the connection and understanding that, again, the animals aren't, I keep saying it,
Yeah.
aren't honestly, because that's all it is,
Wait, when you said for 5 years, it didn't click for you yet. Was that
No,
correct?
I think it was, growing up and understanding autonomy and everything like that. And it took me a while. It takes me a while to understand things. And I think that's why I'm like, we talk about seed planting and talk about ridding ourselves of the speciesism and everything, because it's in there. You have to pry it and over again. And you think, oh, um, I'm I'm there with it. I'm considering animals, yet people then still buying from breeders or something like
Yeah.
that, or they're not. Maybe they stroke a dog who clearly doesn't want to be touched.
Sure.
It's stuff like that. It's just like, oh, my appeasement. That's what matters. But yeah, it took me a while to understand. So I understand why it may take people longer.
Yeah.
But obviously, the from where I'm standing, I just want people to change right now, because
Of
they're
course.
paying for it
I
right now.
mean, heck,
So
even in my brain, I was like, man, if this is the answer, this is what I always hear from vegans. The regret is that you didn't do it sooner.
exactly,
But I
yeah.
feel like I literally can't do it unless it feels honest, because then I feel like I'm lying. But at least I know I'm also practicing it. Even if I'm not in it, I'm at least I'm at least by action for all, mostly acting in a better way, so that my brain's like, okay, it's like I'm gonna have to take my time. But like if it clicks, it clicks. But that's what I know I experience, and I assume everybody is. I kind of
Mhm.
think all people, neurotypical or not, or neurodivergent or not, are having a lack of an embodied experience, much like somebody who, has the audacity to make a podcast about how like women should never speak or be in public spaces. It's like that's a belief people are having around the world. Like that's a belief that I see from people. These are grown-ups, like grown-ups that you think would know better to a certain extent, but they don't. So then I'm like, are you not having that embodied experience? Are you not having that understanding of what you're doing? And then I wonder, like, how long will it take for them to get it if they ever get it at all?
Yeah, and I guess again, that, what I talked about earlier, where veganism is a massive root of the problems that we have, because women by these men are seen as lesser than, they're different, they're not as strong. We have power over them. Might makes right. They're not as intelligent. All
Right.
these things that will be said about women in these spaces, and these are the justifications we use to put animals in these positions where we commodify them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think it's just hard to. It's like it must be really hard to fathom, but it's hard for humans to do this for other humans. I mean, that's why racism is so prevalent. I can't believe Nazism is like back in. I'm like, really? It's back in that quick? Like it was barely out of the loop. And then it's, you know what I mean? It was never really gone. But the fact that like we have to be talking about like skin color when it comes to ourselves. So I know humans aren't ready. Like I know humans aren't there universally to be like vegan. But I do think that for some of us, and I always say this, like, look, the whole moves very slowly, but it's moving. The
Mhm,
individual has a much higher chance of moving faster and running past the crowd. And our job is to get to the finish line in quotations, and then wave and be like, okay, this is like, hey, come over here, come this direction, like over
mhm.
here. And then we're all kind of fighting. And then I think some people, I imagine we're all running a race. And like some people get further than others, and the people who aren't as far go here. I reached the end, and I'm like, no, you did not. It's over here. And then you're sitting here like, no, Brittany, it's over here. And I'm like, no, it's over here. And like we're arguing about where the end is, and there is like no end in my belief. My belief is like there is no end. Veganism isn't the end. Like
Mhm.
veganism is a part of the path.
Yeah, I think in the future there will be something that is named differently, and goes further because we are able to go further with it than we are, but I can't conceptualize that.
Right.
But yeah, for right now, like veganism is like, I just can't believe we're not adopting that en masse, and that's not that should be the standard. And yeah, obviously, yeah, there's all these things that we need to improve upon, and then if someone comes along and they're like, by the way, also this. But I think if you are fundamentally exploitative with your practice, then that's definitely a problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I really do think that you will make the connection, and when you do,
Are
like,
you
or if
saying
you
that
do.
because you want to convert me? Are you saying that because you think you see
No, no,
something?
I wouldn't be saying it unless I'm sure, because I know you're demand avoidant. So you would, but I just sense it, because it's not even like, oh, this is the right thing to do. It's like, I'm already doing the wrong thing, and you've already changed the practices for the most part.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah, yeah.
beliefs need to come. So I think the beliefs will come, and you will see them as the individuals they are, and I do actually see that. Otherwise, if I didn't, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd just be like, I'm playing on the demand avoidance.
Okay, so at this point in the conversation, is there anything that you specifically want to talk about or share with us, or do you have questions for me or my audience, or is you maybe want to take questions from the audience? Like, where are you at?
Oh, well, I the conversation has gone on for an hour and 45, and I do need to make dinner at some
Oh,
point.
okay.
So yeah, I suppose I would just ask again, because I'm not quite clear. What what do you think, like, an animal would want, like a pig would want of a human? Um, if they could say it in our language, like, what do you think they would ask of us?
Well, if I projected like a human perception of understanding onto them, I assume they'd be just like us. Where like some pigs would be better than other pigs, and some pigs would be more tolerable than other pigs. Some pigs would be assholes, and some pigs would be great. And like some pigs would be just as complex as us. But I hold the belief system for humans that we don't kill them even if they're annoying.
Yeah.
So even if a pig was annoying, like wouldn't give us the justice to kill them. Did you watch Eliza Thornberry growing up?
No.
Oh my god. In America, there was a show called Liza Thornberry, and she had the power to talk to animals.
Oh, like Dr. Dolittle?
Yeah, but, cuter and better, and so because it was about girls, and, like, it was fun, and, like, it was, like, one of those things where I was like, "She better be a vegan girl," but, like, I have to go back and watch the show now because, like, she can talk
Mhm.
to animals. So she knows they're having, like, the same complex relationship that we're having. Now, we did watch on stream the other day, Ask a Mortician, I forget her real name, and she talked about a mother whale mourning the death of her baby,
Mm.
but she also cautioned us to project our humanness onto the whale.
Oh, like anthropomorphize?
Yeah, what do you think
Mhm.
about that?
So anthropomorphism makes sense in the sense of like, oh, a chimpanzee is smiling. Well, that's a sign of aggression if they're smiling. They are ready to fight. I'm pretty sure that's what that means. But I think we have I saw this like comic strip of like judging a fish on their ability to climb a tree,
Right,
that sort
right.
of thing. I think we think too much. Like we say, oh, don't project your feelings. It's just like, hang on, animals are having these feelings as well. We are just acting as if humans are the ones with the emotions. Like like with a dairy cow, there's literature that is called the psychology of cows. It goes through the distress that they experience when
Oh,
their babies are taken away from them. They bellow out. That we're not projecting human experience onto them by just seeing that they're screaming for their baby. They're literally
right, right. We
bellowing
saw it
for
with
their
the
baby.
wombat mom. The wombat
Yeah,
mom was literally screaming and very upset, and
yeah,
the human even said, "Oh, she's so mad," and I was like, "You took her baby!"
yeah,
You
and
know?
it's not like an animal can experience. We The more we learn about them, the more we understand they can experience rage. They can experience happiness. It's weird because we accept they can hear better than us. They can see better than us. What's to say they're not feeling more than we can? A pig can orgasm for 30 minutes.
Crazy.
Like, so
That's it.
what's yeah?
Bottom of the
What's to
food chain,
say?
us. Top of the
So
food chain, them.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'd be like, yeah, I can understand why someone would say don't anthropomorphize if it's not coming toward the truth,
Sure.
like a dog smiling. Then
I agree with that, yeah.
yeah,
You don't
but
wanna do that.
if we're like ignoring that they are feeling a sadness, just like we would feel a sadness, just because humans feel sad and maybe they don't feel sad like we do.
I mean, I
Um,
would even argue, like, I take it so far as to say that even some humans aren't necessarily gonna feel sad over their offspring dying. We've
yeah.
seen that happen. So
Hmm.
for me, I'm going for the truth. That's why I don't wanna get bogged down by any construct that has a limitation on what could be true if it goes against the construct.
Hmm.
So my fear, of course, is like, is there any element to the vegan construct that is going to be anti-science, that is going to be anti new information? Because that's scary to me. Like, I don't like the idea of it limiting because it doesn't match the prescription made. But I can't think of one right now, but maybe there could be. I
The
don't
only
know.
things that could be like, so again, it would be in the plant-based diet realm. You might have like restrictive or like unhealthy plant-based diets, and people might make statements about them. But see, again, that's not veganism itself. So that might be, I'm not thinking of anything in veganism itself.
Okay.
But I mentioned the diet thing because as we've seen throughout this, people think it's a diet.
Right.
Um, so it's important to highlight that, yeah, like I'm not trying to ignore that there might be some anti-science stuff, but yeah, I can't think of any in the realm of veganism. Like, it is the case that you can exploit a dog, a chicken, a pig, a fish.
Yeah.
It is the case that they don't like being you can do things against their best interest. They do suffer, they do feel, they do experience. So,
Definitely.
doing that to them would be a wrong thing to do, to exploit them.
Okay, definitely. I mean, I think again, logically, I'm on there. I got it. Logically, I'm locked in.
Mhm.
I'm just not
But
having.
the emotion,
Yeah,
I,
I'm not
I
having that.
honestly, I don't expect when I'm having conversations to people, like, you're going to do the work.
Yeah.
The conversation doesn't end when we stop talking. The conversation carries on while we are digesting what we interpreted from a
Right.
person.
Right.
So you will do with that knowledge what you will. I have said maybe 100 times today that animals are not ours to use, and maybe that will stick, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm glad that now that because people were talking about veganism being a diet. I'm
Right.
glad that I was able to explain it in a way that made sense.
Definitely, definitely.
Um, and yeah, it's not harm reduction, it's not cruelty, it's not anything like it's fundamentally exploitation,
You
oppression.
just did it again. Just okay, new layer. Okay, new layer.
Yeah.
It's not about harm reduction.
No, 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 because
That's
you
yeah.
could otherwise you could say, remember the piglet lullaby, you know, giving them a lullaby, giving them a stroke, and then stabbing them, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that could be fine. No,
Mm,
no, that
okay.
wouldn't be fine. But that would be reducing harm from the original, where you put them in the factory farms. But
Okay.
the factory farms are not okay, and the you know, the homestead, the nice methods
Yeah.
are not
Okay,
nice.
this is playing a new role. I had somebody in my chat say something, and I've heard this vegan argument before, and it was just like really it confuses me. The whole like, oh, I'd hate to see what you think about like um disabled people or black people if you're not vegan.
Mhm,
And I'm like, what? Like, what are we talking about here? And I think it goes down again to this idea like, I don't think disabled people should be killed because they're disabled. Like
mhm.
that's not the kind of society we want to live in, right? But I also hold the belief separate from that belief that people should have the right to die if they want to in a humane and wonderful way because they're
Mhm.
consenting.
Yeah,
Right? Versus the
exactly.
animal isn't going to consent. Like I know some people will be like the animal came to me to die in my arms. Slow down there,
Yeah,
girl. Like
yeah.
I don't know about that. You know? So I think there is a way to intellectually and with compassion have these conversations, but I think it's going to be hard for some people cuz like I can hear the pro-lifers in the background right now saying like I can't believe you care about animals but not like fetuses. And I'm like I feel you, girl.
Mhm,
Let's talk about it. Let's
mhm.
talk about what these things look like. So again, we're dealing with all these different bubble perceptions, these belief systems, and we're all trying to aim in a direction. But I do logically really like what you have presented.
Yeah, I
I
hope
really
that
like
that
it.
is the yeah, just the general subjugation of these
Yeah.
individuals is probably the best way to explain it, because yeah, otherwise you have these situations where you can still take from them, and it would be, but yeah, the whole disabled people thing, it's because a lot of the time the argument is like they're not as intelligent,
Right.
and so what someone's trying to say is, because some people do bite the bullet and they're like, yeah, kill the disabled people, like
Right, right,
who
right.
have
No, no.
cognitive conditions, and it's just like, no, like we're trying to say is they're not less valuable
Right, right,
just
right.
because they're disabled. Like that's just messed up.
Yeah.
And people will make those arguments that they are less valuable
Yeah. I
because
feel like
they're
that's that
disabled.
utilitarian argument that I just zone out of too, like the
Mhm.
little Peter Singer like energy. I'm like, go away. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this utilitarian argumentation.
Yeah, it's yeah, we can't, that's the thing, that it's all again, it comes back to the intrinsic value, the value of them and them of themselves. They are enough, they are valid, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that will make it make more sense when you view them, and when you're talking about them, and when you're trying to work out how to bring them into your world, like what you do with them. And the best thing to do is just leave them alone, I'd say.
Yeah, well, one of the greatest things I think I took away from this whole process was recontextualizing that I was raised in a bubble, as many of us were, who believe like who genuinely believe like fish didn't feel.
Yeah.
Like that's amazing to me. I was like, why did we ever believe that? Like,
Well, ironically, you know how the person said, "Oh, don't project your feelings about this whale mourning." We project our feelings onto the fish because they don't scream like we do. They don't cry. They don't. They just open their mouths
they
and
look pretty
don't
fucking
express.
distraught though. Like,
Yeah, and it's just
you
like,
know,
yeah, if you give them a moment of empathy, you can see that they are struggling, they are
yeah,
suffering, they are being used in this way, and not in their best interest.
yeah.
And but we project, oh, you know, because I'm pretty sure dogs have made an adaptation where they have more muscles in their eyebrows. So fact check me, but I'm pretty sure this is the case, that they've made this adaptation to people suspect it so that they can manipulate humans more.
It
But
works.
I might actually just
It
be
works.
completely talking. I heard this, and I was just like, I wouldn't be shocked, because you know, we look at dogs, and you know, we still exploit them, which is
Yeah.
amazing, because we
Yeah.
like to say we love them so much. But yeah, we have seemingly a little more empathy for them than we do a fish.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, I like the best thing to do for animals, just to make sure they're not in any of these positions at all, is just not see them this way and just view them differently. And yeah, I if I have more questions, I'll just put them in your chat if that's okay when you're
Great.
live.
Great.
But this has been like really, I hope valuable to you, and it's nice
Definitely.
to. Usually, I'm debating people, but I understand that if you don't want to have a debate, that's absolutely fine. And
Yeah.
you
I
know, a
appreciate you
conversation.
coming to have the conversation. I think it was really great for my audience. Like, you gave me so many things to think about, and like you chiseled away. Like I'm chiseling away at like my whatever that like bubble pop I need is. I'm like, you helped me chisel. You gave me some tools today, so I really
I'm so
appreciate
glad,
it.
and I
Yeah, you
appreciate
really
you
did.
being honest about that, because it takes a lot to be like, you have a differing opinion from me, and I'm going to admit that you had some sort of effect on me. Like
Definitely.
people, when I'm speaking to them, they don't really want to say that, but we're always having an effect on
Of course.
others. So yeah, in the animal context, we are having a horrible effect of
Yeah.
exploitation.
We are. We are.
Drink every time I said exploitation. But I just, yeah, I thought it
Yeah.
was important to use that word, because that is the word that explains what's going on. And yeah,
Thank you
I'm
for being
excited to see
I
how you
appreciate
get
it.
on with it.
Yeah, this has been really cool. And if I have any other questions, maybe we can do a collab in the future if I have more things to go over.
Mhm.
But thank you for spending the afternoon with me. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. I was very nervous for some reason. My anxiety was playing up. So I hope,
Honestly, like collaborations always feel that way to me, but then it ended up feeling really comfortable really
yeah,
fast. So
that
I
was good.
appreciate it.
All
All
right.
right. Well, enjoy
Thank
your
you.
dinner and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, give me just a second here. Give me a second. Switching over. Hold on. Hold on. Boomer Brittany. I'm coming. I gotta activate. Activation. Activation. Okay. That was really cool. I really loved that conversation. Here's how this stream is gonna go. I'm gonna take questions about anyone who has a conversation about veganism or exploring this topic more. Then I'm going to leave stream and go finish recording Love is Blind and try to get a couple episodes recorded for today, because this is what I wanted to do today. Do we have questions? Do we have topics on what we just talked about? Any questions? Any thoughts? I thought it was really good. It helps me chisel away at things. Also, is my microphone way lower than normal? Because I did have to change some settings, and I feel like I might have turned it down too much. And I'm really sad. If I was, oops, I just muted myself. Was I super quiet the whole time? I was kind of quiet. Damn it. Oh, that makes me sad. Okay, hold on. Testing audio, testing, testing, testing. Ugh, that makes me so sad. That makes me so sad. Okay, let me. Okay. Damn. Okay, I'll have to work on that. Ugh. Um. Okay, let me see. Da-da-da. Okay, any questions? Any comments? I'm trying to think. I think I'm just gonna keep working on my own. Uh, I feel like yeah, I really don't want to make this prescription to anybody, especially to my audience. Like, even if I go down this journey, I think, like, with everything that I do, I don't want anyone to think that you have to do it, but that you might want to do it. It might be a good idea, right? Maybe. Ren membership for 20 months. Thank you so much. Says the vegan conversation has inspired me to go for plant meat every week at the store instead of frozen chicken breasts. It's a start. It is a start, and I'm here for it. Yeah. Chat says, can vegans radically accept reality? I don't think they'd be unable to. What is there an indication that you're seeing in which they'd be unable to? I think, yeah, I'm not sure where that question is stemming from. Discord says, how do you feel about now the difference between plant-based versus vegan in terms of categorization? Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure which one I'd still fall into. I think neither at the moment, technically, because even for plant-based, I'm still engaging in any kind of meat tasting. Like I've tried my partner's food. I haven't eaten like a bowl of it, but I've tried like a spoonful of meat over the last few weeks. I even tried some cheese the other day because they were asking me to help them eat it so they wouldn't have to throw it away. And first of all, I broke out. I have like 7 pimples on my face, so fuck dairy. But I did try it and I've been experimenting with gluten again. I have a feeling that it was the dairy that was really effing me up really badly, or maybe 2 inflammations at once. But I will say that I think plant-based is also still kind of inappropriate, but I in terms of my purchasing power, I have really focused on uh just going plant-based and it's been great. Like my budget's happy. I've been easily finding vegan desserts. I found vegan brownies, so I'm pretty excited about that. I can also make these things at home, those spoons, you know. So I'm still having a really easy time. I also, holy shit, we found local tofu, like fresh tofu in the fridge section, and it blew my mind. It is, guys, not all tofus are made the same. There's these Croatian-based tofus because I've been eating this German-based tofu from DM, but my partner found me 3 types of Croatian-based tofu. It is the most delicious thing I have ever had. I made me some tacos the last couple of days. I fried up, or no, I baked and I fried up. I did 2 different methods. The bake, I prefer. I baked the tofu after, what's this called? Shredding it. Oh, I blew my mind. It was so good. It was the best thing I had ever had. Croatian tofu, best tofu, bro. Like homegrown, like local. Ooh, girl. So we're gonna make it's at a further store, so I have to kind of work for it. So I told my partner, okay, like maybe that can be like our weekend, maybe on Saturdays in April when I start taking off Saturdays because I'd love a day off. Not that I don't love being here. I think Saturday is gonna be my go get tofu days. So take a bus into town, go to the bigger store because our local stores don't have it. So it's a little bit of an effort, but I think it's worth the effort. It's really good, you know? Jess says, have you considered making your own tofu? Their bean tofu is really interesting. I have thought about it. I'm not there yet, like spoon wise. I'm not quite there yet. It takes me a lot of spoons and effort to learn a new recipe. I mean, even learning to make vegan pancakes has been incredibly hard process. They're not coming out the way I want. I don't have access. All the vegan recipes on the internet have some sort of egg replacement that you don't find in Croatia. So it's like it's so exhausting to me that I'm not cooking anything new right now. I'm just focusing on making sure I'm cooking what I know how to cook. But my goal is eventually to try it maybe. But right now I'm just lucky. I feel really grateful, immense amount of gratitude that there's local made tofu that's delicious, mind-blowingly good, and I just want to be grateful for that because not having access to that would be very difficult, you know? Yeah. Let's see. Chat says there are documentaries about exploitation of tomato farming. One is called Food Change. It's pretty wild. Women pick seeds and get paid $2 an hour. Then the company sells them for 250K. Jesus. I love tomatoes. I love humans. All of our industries are built on the back of exploitation. This is why people say no ethical consumption under capitalism, because capitalism at its root is about making the most money. That's why, you know, in one of the documentaries I saw, it was like, it was about environmental impact of Amazon. And it was talking about how like going to Amazon and saying, hey, instead of making 50 billion this year, are you willing to make 25 billion? And their answer is always going to be no. Because at the end of the day, as long as your goal is to be the top, as long as your goal is to make the most money, as long as your goal is to be the richest, then it's going to come at the expense of everybody else. Animal, human, planet, it's just going to come at the expense of everybody else. Right? Now, remember, I do think the masses are participating in the system. I do think there are many ways, much like going vegan, that you can impact the environment for the better, impact these industries because they are buying this many food to feed the demand. Like they are making this fast fashion to feed the demand. We are the demand. Now, of course, in a lot of ways, they also built it into our environment to think we want the demand. So we also have to fight marketing and know that they're marketing to us to make us think we want this demand that they're giving us, including the meat industry. Like the meat industry, they're manipulating you with marketing as much as anyone else. Chick-fil-A and their cute little cow ads. You're not eating a cow, but you're eating a chicken. It's like, you know, those little, you know, the billboards for Chick-fil-A. You know, so again, like I think it's about us taking responsibility and also recognizing we won't be perfect and also recognizing, gosh, in an ideal world, which will never happen, but it's fun to dream, we would obviously have access to all of these things without exploitation. you know? But that's just not where we are. But that's, that's the truth of it is like without in an ideal world we'd be able to enjoy the same if not better. I was watching the Final Table, something like that. It's a Netflix cooking show something. I was watching it and I was thinking, man, these people are eating so like delicate and, Michelin star. We could be eating Michelin star every day. Vegan Michelin star every day if we organized better, but we don't because we don't even do it in our own lives. Again, I cannot ask the world to be better than I'm able to be myself. And so I say the world is a reflection of us as a whole, right? How can I ask the world to do something that I'm not doing myself? And at the same time, I don't want to ask the world to do something I'm doing because I know how hard it was for me to do it. So how can I make a demand on them when they might not be ready to make that change? You know what I mean? You said McDonald's could do one Michelin star even. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, our quality of life is a reflection of our sort of our belief of what we think is even possible. We are limited by ourselves. We are the limits um to advancement of society, to the quality of our life. I really want to focus on the quality of life here. And I think that, that starts in our own homes. Where's the quality of life in my home if I'm in a toxic relationship? Where's the quality of life in my home if I'm eating toxic foods? Where's the quality of life in my home if I'm abusing and exploiting people? Like where's the quality in my own home? And then how do I get that to the highest quality possible without giving into this marketing of what quality looks like? Because quality to marketing is overconsumption. Quality in a philosophical sense is like things that are well-rounded and healthy for you and that are getting you closer to your higher thinking self, right? In a biological sense. So I want to encourage that as much as possible, even in my own life. But the temptation for overconsumption is so rampant. It's like it's truly an addiction that they're trying to make us all addicted, and they're doing it for no other reason than they think it's part of their biological experience, right? It's a part of their idea, their bubble. So it's not like I'm going to point the fingers at the billionaires and be like, "Oh, you're the reason the world's a mess." They are partially responsible for why the world is a mess. But more than that, our biological experience is what it is. You know? And we're a part of that. We are that experience. Um, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Chat says, living near a chicken raising place for meat, seeing and smelling, the conditions are horrid and the feed they eat is so dubious to the point they're using their waste as fertilizer, actively fucked up. That was in one of the documentaries I was watching. There was a pig farm spraying feces as a part of the fertilizer that was moving in the wind and hitting people's homes. It was disgusting. Kat says, so after the conversation, how do you now see animals? Do they deserve basic decency or do you still believe they exist to be objectified and used for human purposes? Under that, I want to deconstruct this conversation. First, you're putting a belief in my brain that doesn't work universally, right? So, like you said, do they deserve basic decency or do you still believe? So you're inferring that you believe some. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you're making I can't even answer this question. Like that's not how you ask people questions. Because that's not how people think. Like that's not how my brain thinks. You know what I mean? If you watch this whole conversation, you would know that's not how people think. Like human beings as a biological, like myself included, like nobody's sitting here and thinking like, you know what I mean? Like you're asking in a gotcha way, which makes me defensive, which makes me think like like you're a bad person. Like makes me think you're trying to like be mean. If you're not intending to be mean, do you want to reword your question? Because like that sounds so bad faith. You know what I mean? Um let's see. We should be focused on reducing harm. Less everyone should be vegan and more propping up and supporting ethical produced goods, regenerative farming, local producers, etc. Um yeah, it depends on your goals, right? It definitely depends on your goals. I don't think we should all do anything. But I think individually, we should all attempt to have a better relationship with our existence and existing. You know? I think that's what's important. You know what I mean? Like, we should all attempt as people to have a better relationship with our values and understanding that they're not objective and one day we're going to die and none of this is going to matter. But it's not about the one day we will die. It's about the quality of life we could have now and the quality of life that our future kids could have then. And even if you don't have kids, the future quality of people. Again, living in Croatia and seeing Roman ruins, like walls that were put there by people who couldn't even have fathomed my existence. And now, all these years later, I'm seeing these ruins. Like, you have to remember, like, you are someone's future. We were someone's future at some point. And we do want to give those people credit for the way that they helped improve our future, but also in the way that we have continued the cycle that is maybe negative, the negative stuff. You know what I mean? So, yeah. That says my mom told me they used to eat meat twice a week, one time fish and the other time Sunday meatloaf. That's 50 years ago. I think it would be beneficial to many though. Now I think that would be beneficial to many though. Like to eat twice the meat instead of every day. This is what I'm saying. Do you guys understand that like I eat meat every day? Every day, girl. Chicken going to this mid physique, bro. Kind of crazy to think about. Like I never all of my meals had meat in it. So if I eat twice a day, twice meat. You know? Yeah. Just as we are also someone else's past. Yeah, we are. They're definitely going to look back and look at us and have some questions about what we're doing. That's something I think about when I meditate. I think, what is the thing that I'm going to look back and think, oh man, you know? You know? Pat says you did objectify and use animals before, right? I'm not here to be nice. I'm here to defend victims. If you were the one being used, how would you want someone to speak for you? Not the way you're speaking. As a minority, not the way you're speaking. Not the way you're speaking. I am a minority. And I don't want you to defend me this way to people. Not this way. Because if you really want to make change, you have to know who you're talking to. This isn't how you talk to people who are on the cusp of joining your side. If you're talking to other vegans, you can be aggressive with them in the same way that I'm pretty aggressive against Republicans on my channel because Republicans don't watch me. But if I'm talking to a Republican, no, going for their throat isn't going to help. You're just going to make them double down. So if you're not interested in being kind, compassionate, well, getting people to be, because people are animals, right? You're basically just attacking another animal or attacking another animal. Like, I'm telling you, we're having a biological experience. Like, we only learn as we go. I just had this whole beautiful conversation with somebody. I am telling you, I don't want to be defended that way to people. I want people to see the compassion and the goodness in ourselves, but to understand that we are limited by our biology and we must push the bounds of that biology. But you cannot transcend nature. You cannot transcend your nature. You can only have a deeper relationship with it. That says if you're not interested in being intellectually honest, then there's no point, Brittany. Okay. Bye. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye. 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 Blocked. Okay, so again, like I form a community here that's deeply opening to challenging themselves through a compassionate lens, meaning to suffer with. There is no way that I cannot help but suffer with people who are so separated from their food, who are on a journey of like, you can't switch overnight. That's why racism is still a thing. That's why people don't understand what sexual assault is. Because it takes time for us to process these things because we raise people badly. These are victims of circumstances, okay? And the circumstances create victims. And it's like your trauma. You can't expect people to be like, hey, do you know your boyfriend's beating you? You should leave him. And then not understanding why they don't leave. Because it doesn't work that way. People don't just, and if they do, that's great, but that's not everybody. Okay? So I like to meet people where they're at, myself included, especially myself. I already told you, logically, I get it. Embodied experience isn't there yet. I'll work on it. If it happens, it happens. But I also am not going to predict the future for you girls, okay? But every time we look at people, remember like who and how we're fighting for people. But remember that the people you're talking to might not also come in good faith. Just because you're advocating for something that's correct doesn't mean you're coming in good faith. You know? So when you have two good faith people who are genuinely exploring, you'll always have a change, even if it comes slowly. But as long as people are coming into conversations unwilling to change their mind in a real way forward, never backwards, it's not going to happen. Okay. And remember, because I don't have conservatives in my audience. Okay. But if I heard a conservative, they might say, well, you're not open minded to thinking homophobia might be wrong, because that's moving backwards. We're not going to be open minded to us moving backwards. We're only open minded to how we move forward. Okay. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to figure out if the earth is flat. We already did all that. So the fact is, we don't stay open-minded to going backwards. We stay open-minded to only going forwards. And we do go forwards. You know, we do. Now, we just had a really good faith conversation, right? Elle came in. We had a really good conversation. I think that was very good faith. I felt like that was a real conversation, and I haven't had one of those in a long time. You know, and when we're talking about something that's so important to people. Okay? It does not feel to me right now like I'm having a conversation with somebody about, like, should women be molested and used for cattle? Like, that doesn't feel like that's the conversation I'm having. Maybe to some vegans, it feels like the same conversation. Like, I don't feel like Elle and I were talking about whether or not Black people deserve rights, but I know for some vegans, that is how it feels to them. That they look at humans the way I look at humans. They look at animals the way I look at humans. Meaning that when I see people of color being targeted, I'm like, absolutely not. But they say animals that way. I'm not there yet. I can't see animals and their right for autonomy the same way that I see, like, minorities' right for autonomy. I'm not there yet. I get it logically and from a spiritual lens. I don't get it right now in that embodied sense. Like, I'm not there. So, that's just me being honest. Like, it's hard for me to imagine fighting for women's rights, like, for animals' rights, the same way I do for women's rights, or for AFAB or trans rights. You know, like, I'm not there yet. But I know for some vegans, they feel like, that's how it is. And I think that's so valid. I'm not there, and I'm not sure that I can get there, but I'm working on deconstructing. You know, I'm working on deconstructing it. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I might block you too, bro. I don't know yet. You said, are there any valid reasons to objectify and use you? If not, why do you think it's justified to do the same for others for your own purpose? You're doing it again. You're putting things in my vocabulary. You're doing it again. You don't know how to ask a question. You can't ask a question that way because you're doing, like, the debate bro thing, or you're doing the weird thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how you ask a question. How do you ask a question? Hold on. How do we ask a question? Like, first, human beings don't relate things to themselves always. Right? Like, that's not how you ask the question. The question isn't, how would you feel if it happened to you? That's not always how it works. The question is it within the framework of your value system to do this in any capacity? Is a much stronger argument in this bubble. Because it's not about me. It's about whether or not it's correct within the construct of your made up values, which is all made up. So your veganism is as made up as any other value system. The question is how does veganism play into a made up rule that we've created because our biological experiences allows us to even play with the idea? You are having a biological experience that has even allowed you an opportunity to think, what if I didn't eat animals? What if I didn't rape? What if I didn't kill? What if I didn't racist? What if I didn't anything? So then that question comes, okay, well, if you're having the biological experience that allows you an opportunity to think, why shouldn't I eat animals, or should I eat animals? Okay, that's not a universal experience. In the same way that I never think, like, what is something I never think? Like, I was playing is there ever a reason to game with myself? Is there ever a reason to eat animals? Like, maybe. Is there ever a reason to kill a person? Definitely. Is there ever a reason to be racist? Is there ever a reason to lie? Is there ever a reason to rape? Is there ever a reason to do these things? The reason we create comes out of the construct of belief we hold in relation to values. So we can't create a reason out of nothing. The reason comes from something. And usually that's why our brain, like, goes back to how we got to this thinking in the first place. So again, like, when we have these conversations, we're going backwards in time for a whole person's lived experience, their biological experience, their environmental experience, their educational experience, and we're asking them a question. So, you know what I mean? Um, okay, I'm going to block you now, but I'm going to answer this. When victims are involved, the right question is the one that challenges injustice. If this question makes you uncomfortable, maybe it's because the answer holds you accountable. Um, Victim is also a construct, in which I would agree with you. We want less victims, but you can't create less victims by creating more. The reason Anna Kasparian and people tend to leave the progressive movement and go more right winged is because they are victimized and find solace in these communities. So you can't create more victims and then wonder why they're not on your side. So if you create a system in which you attack people, now you have victimized those people. So you can't attack people and then be like, why do you feel like a victim? Because you're literally attacking human beings for having a biological experience instead of that's why I don't believe in punishment. I do not believe in punishment. I do not believe that we should punish people into doing what's right. I don't think we should shame people into doing what's right. I think we should convince them by giving them exposure to the proper environment that allows them to have that bubble pop. Right? Like because of the right because of the oops, what did I just do? Oh, I just pinned this message on accident. Not what I meant to do. Goodbye. You are victimizing yourself. You aren't the victim here. Block me by Anna Kasparian is right wing. Yeah, she like went through this whole right. So she was sexually assaulted by a homeless person. And then she was attacked when she expressed the story online. And the only people who gave her a space to be herself was the right, which is bullshit, right? Like, but that is what happens when you're, first of all, on the internet. Don't go to the internet for comfort. Go to your therapist and your family members. That's one of the problems, right? The secondary problem is that we forget that like this is a human experience. And I remember when we were reviewing the video, people were like, Brittany, why do you think she was like traumatized? Trauma puts you in a position of going to people who feel like they'll protect you. So even though those people are being really bad to somebody else, if you feel safe, you might join them. Right? That says the right question is the one that is actually effective. If you aren't effective, the why would you continue the approach that way? Right. If you want to be effective in your activism, then you have to do it the way that makes sense to the people you're talking to. Now, it doesn't mean like if I make a video on YouTube, I'm going to definitely turn away a lot of people. But I'm also not trying to have an audience that I'm trying to convince. I'm trying to have an audience that's already baseline open-minded, which means like you're not going to be Republicans or conservatives. You're not going to be militant atheists or militant vegans. You're not going to be like TERFs. Okay? You're not going to be these people. Right? Like you're not going to be these people. But also for these people, that's how they have been treated their whole life. This is the tactics colonizer used. And so they're like, I'm going to use it back. Sure. Like sometimes people have told me I'm too harsh on my stream. Right. But if I was talking to you, I would change the way I was talking to make sure you could hear me to the best of my ability. But when you're on my channel in my home, I'm going to talk the way I do to my peers and my audience members who I think are progressive. I'm not trying to build a safe space for conservatives in my audience. But if I talk to conservatives, I make sure to use as much compassion and love as I would with any living being. Right? So yeah. Chat says this is a good parallel to why people like Andrew Tate gain a big audience. Why Andrew Tate gains a big audience? Because men feel attacked in the feminist movement, for sure. And by the way, they will continue to feel attacked as long as they always show up to the feminist group saying, why don't you care about my feelings? As long as men continue to show up to female spaces and demand, or queer spaces or AFAB spaces, and continue to demand that their feelings are take priority, yeah, you will feel attacked in this space because it's not about you. Feminist spaces aren't about men. Not about cis men, especially. Right? So, like, they keep coming to the wrong community and being like, what the fuck? And I'm like, show up to the right community. Show up to the right spaces. You know? Like, show up to the right spaces. If you don't show up to the right spaces, like, of course you're going to feel automatically rejected. And also, a sense of self-awareness is so important. I can tell you how many men have come to me, complained to me, voted for Trump, dream of being passport bros, are self-aware but not introspective. You can be self-aware all you want and call out all your problems, but until you do something about it, girl, girl, we have to make an effort to interact with humans in a way that meets them with their animal biological experience, ourself included. We cannot ask perfection out of people. People are animals. I would never ask an animal to be perfect. And so it feels like when you come into my chat and you say things like, you should be vegan now. You heard the argument, be vegan. It's like, I love that, but that's not the animal experience I'm having. That's not the animal experience I'm having. And it would be a lie for me just to pretend, oh, yeah, I get it. And that's what I think happened to Alex O'Connor. I think he logically was vegan, but he didn't have the embodied experience. And so it can feel disappointing to identify as vegan in public and then go back to eating animals, right? And it's like, it's the same way that people don't understand how you can marry a person of color and still be racist, or how you can be gay and be homophobic. Like, people don't understand how that's possible. But of course it's possible. So we're not dealing with the same like tools. I know that I can agree logically it's wrong to eat animals in an exploitative way and still not have the embodied experience. Just like I suffered from internalized misogyny most of my life, it takes a long time to deconstruct those things. You act like it happens overnight. For people who are raised in really racist homes, they have to deconstruct their racism in a way that, like, thank God I didn't have to do in the same way, right? I grew up with a lot of colorism. I grew up with a lot of, like, enough racist commentary, but I didn't grow up in some fucking Confederate flag, Ku Klux Klan white people house. I don't know what that's like to have to deconstruct white nationalism from my brain, but I'm sure it's difficult, which is why we now create support systems for it. We have pathways. We have ways for people to deconstruct the racist homes they were built in. I don't know what that's like, but I can tell you this. Until you deconstruct, you can't expect people to invite you to the barbecue, because we can't be inviting white nationalists to the barbecue. Okay? You can do it if you want to, but I see no reason to invite them. Because if you're still deconstructing, you're still a danger. And why would I bring you into my home where you could look at people at the barbecue and be a threat to them in some capacity? I don't need to bring the homophobes to the barbecue. Like, I love that you're deconstructing it. I think that's great, but I don't know if you're the safest person to have around my family. So again, we want to make sure that we deconstruct appropriately, but know that it's a journey for everybody. And then, making sure that we know that, like, you're asking an animal to change overnight. Like, I deeply believe humans are animals, which means we can only do what we can within our biological limits. We cannot transcend our biological limits. We cannot transcend our nature. So we cannot just change overnight. It's like, we know about epigenetics. We know about trauma generationally. We know about these things. We know it takes years to be better. And as a person who, was undiagnosed autistic most of her life, as a person who, dealt with a lot of trauma her whole life, and I've been deconstructing it, even now that I'm in my healing part of my journey. The irony is, once you reach the healing part of your journey, and girls, I don't want this to, I want this to be a reality that you have to face, not something to keep you away from going towards the healing journey. But even when you're in the healing journey, now you're in the secondary phase of learning how to live in a body that isn't always running on adrenaline, or isn't always running on, like, what happens if we die? What happens if we die? That's a whole other journey, because you're still, like, learning to regulate. You're regulating in your joy, which is just, it's different too. That says justice isn't a journey, it's a decision. Justice is 100% a journey. Again, I don't know why vegans hold human animals to more responsibility than they're capable of exhibiting. You are flawed in your thinking. Are humans animals or not? Because if humans are animals, then you cannot ask them to be more than they are until they are ready to be something more. Humans cannot be more than they are until they are more than they are in that moment. That's why we introspect. It's why we grow, right? Chet says, is being non-racist a journey? Is being non-sexist a journey? Yes. Yes. 100%. Yes. Why do you think we're deconstructing racism? We're deconstructing capitalism. We're deconstructing sexism. Yes. You know what I mean? And if you please don't, I appreciate the comments, but don't type too many times. Like, if I don't read your comment, I'm not going to read your comment, right? But I appreciate the feedback, right? I'm just not getting to all of it, but you don't have to, write the same thing multiple times. But yes, being like, yes, you have to deconstruct. That's why it's so hard, because we're born animals, and we're not born good. We're born just beings. And sometimes we're raised in racist environments and we have to journey out of racism. We have to deconstruct. That's why it's called deconstruction. We take it apart to understand it better, you know? Yeah. That's why people of color, gay people, they're not responsible for educating you. But, you know, if individuals want to meet you where you're at and educate you, that's great, but they're not obligated to. And the same reason an animal shouldn't have to advocate for their sanctity of life, their existence should be enough, right? But it's not enough for people because we're animals on a planet and our brains are what they are. We're having that relationship, you know? Non-racism and non-sexism are not just journeys, they are commitments to equality and justice. We must actively choose to challenge and unlearn supremacist biases every day. Yes, but you're making a prescription I don't make for human animals. On this channel, this community, I am not making that prescription for you. It's our ethical responsibilities only if you're on the journey, only if that's where you're at, only if your biological experience takes you there. You know? Like, it's very difficult for human beings, and we know that, to learn, you know? So you have to, yeah. Chet says we're born animals, but humans become very different from other animals when we start learning about language. I don't know that that's true. I think we are different in a specific way, but we're not better. We're not different in a significant way. Guys, we still are deconstructing skin color. Like human beings, you're giving people too much credit. And I think it's so unnecessary. Like you're giving people so much credit, much more than they deserve, as we see through action. I don't know why we're so amped to give human beings so much more credit than they deserve. Give them their flowers when they deserve it. Give everyone their flowers, but stop assuming like human beings are like these great things that are just so able, you know? Like we're so limited. And we're just lucky to be here during this limited time to contribute, you know? Maiden in the chat says it takes a journey to come to any you must conclusions. Most of life isn't conclusive, I have found. It's an unfolding process and journey is inherent. I agree. You said fundamentalist vegans are just as bad as fundamentalist Christians, as fundamentalist atheists. Well, again, if you're animals on a planet, then you must meet humans where they are at as an animal species. The same way you would meet a dog who was like a wild animal and like wasn't domesticated. Like in the same way that you would meet anyone on a journey who doesn't know better or doesn't have the options to know better. I don't think all human beings have access to even making that decision. We just talked about disabled people. There's a lot of forms of disability that will limit a human's ability to even have that conversation in the first place. So we have to meet people where they're at to see who can have what, relationship with self. Look, as an autistic person who's like low support needs, when I look at high support needs autistics, like they're not unable with the tools we have right now to like not attack some people, right? The stereotype of high needs autistics growing up for me were teenage boys who beat up their teachers because they were autistic. Now that's a lacking of a lot of lack of tools, lack of education, lack of science, a lack of all of things, right? So we need to be able to meet high needs autistic people where they're at, while being compassionate about the fact that some of them without intention might hurt other people, right? Without the intention, right? Versus somebody else who with intention, who understands the consequences, hurts somebody, right? So we need to have to talk. We have to be able to have those conversations. But I think all people are so unique and diverse because we're animals and having a biological experience. We're going to be limited and yet not limited because we're so not limited in the ways we think we are, but we're limited in ways we didn't consider. It's like the same people that think ADHD isn't a disability. It's like, okay, there's like, we have to really have real conversations here. That says vegans defend animals seeking to stop their objectification and use. You're making excuses to continue oppressing them. What gives you the right to use them as tools for your benefit? Why do you talk this way? Like, why do you talk this way? How old are you? Is this like a 15-year-old? Like, why do you talk this? Like, why? It's like, did they not just watch this great conversation I just had? Rights are constructs and the wild might make right. Exactly. Rights are constructs. That's why, but I think you're born free, but the need for rights comes from the construct of denying you access to that freedom, right? So there's something to be said about like, even if the answer is correct, the question is, how do we get there? You know? How do we get there? Let's see. Chad says, let's not compare militant vegan advocacy to forcing religion. Disrespectful. Well, the analogy isn't forcing the religion, it's the militantness. I don't think you have the answer if you have to be ugly to express it. I think if you have to become ugly as a person to express a good solution, I don't think that's the answer. And I don't mean ugly in terms of physicality, I mean like evil. If you have to act evil in order to force good, I don't think that's the answer. You know, but I think that we can discount extremists, like extremist vegans, like to the side, but we should be having the right conversations in the right spaces. Listen, I'm not going to go into a Muslim bubble and be like, you guys like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good answer. I'm not going to go into Afghanistan and be like, you guys are so bad to women. I'm going to do whatever I can to make life better for those women. Because I know that those other people aren't listening, right? Because they're the ones who enacted the law. They're not ready to change. I feel like vegans on the internet go to people who aren't ready to change and they go, make a change instead of making it better for the animals. Make it better for the animals because you can't talk to people who aren't willing to change yet. Because people are having an embodied experience. It's a programming. We are animals, much like the dog who needs. I watch these dog rescue videos on YouTube or on TikTok, and they'll count how many days it takes for the dog to come out of the cage and greet you. That's all of humanity. Only in like not always a victim situation. But animals need time to come out of the cage and lick your hand. We need time to feel safe around people. We need time to come to good conclusions. Now, while you're taking your time, people will suffer, which is why some people will say all humans being eradicated will end suffering, but it won't because all other creatures cause suffering, including tornadoes. Suffering is inevitable. You cannot eradicate suffering. You can only minimize it. You cannot eradicate suffering. Now, veganism, like we've learned today, isn't about eradicating suffering or minimizing harm. It's about seeing animals as moral agents, in which that is going to be very hard for other animals to see other animals as moral agents, right? Because just like the bear doesn't see the deer as a moral agent or doesn't seem to care, asking a human being to see an animal as a moral agent is just as difficult in my mind. It is just as difficult for us to have that embodied experience because we're animals. But individuals might have it along the way. You know what I mean? Like individual humans might have that realization, but for all of us to get there, it's kind of difficult, you know? Discord said, are all forms of horse riding considered non-vegan? Oh, I don't know. I didn't even think about it. Is dog shows and riding horses and stuff? I wouldn't think so. Because like horses are individuals. And if you have a relationship with a horse, I feel like it would make sense for you guys to have a riding experience with it. Like animals, like regular animals, you could ride them. You ever see kids like ride their pigs and they're having a good relationship with them? I feel like I talk to animals. You guys not feel that way? I feel like I can tell what Indiana wants. I feel like she talks to me. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like with certain animals, it would make sense that they could bond with a person and you could have a good relationship with them. You know? Kat says horses need to be trained usually to ride them. I don't know much about horses. Yeah, I don't like, yeah, if you have to train, I don't know what that means. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm open to the fact that we can communicate with non-human animals. So I'm open to the fact that there could be a relationship there that could be interesting. Um, but I don't ride horses, so I don't know about the exploitation there. Um, yeah, that sounds like there could be definitely exploitation. I don't know enough about it though. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. People call horse training breaking. You're right. Yeah, if you have to break an animal, that's a problem, right? I feel like that's a universal. That's bad. You know? Yeah, I agree with that. That's bad. Yeah, because in Arizona, when I lived there, there were these amazing wild horses. It was so cool to see them, but they did not want to interact with you, which is so valid. Um, but they were so cool. Like I had no interest in like making them less wild. I thought it was so cool that they existed. No. Yeah, I could get on. I can get behind that. Like even owning a horse and keeping it in his stable is fucking weird, bro. But like people do, people are weird. What do vegans think about like domesticating dogs and having dogs live with you and stuff like that, or having pets in general? Did we get a clear answer on that? Shoot, I should have asked Elle. Damn it. I am curious about that. Um Now, Indiana did pick me multiple times. Did I ever tell you guys this story? I definitely told people this story. So I adopted Indiana from a shelter. She had just had surgery and she had come home to live with me, and I was living with roommates at the time, and a guy I had just broken up with because we were all renting rooms in this house. And there was no screens on the window. So I put Indiana in my room, which is on the second floor, and I asked my ex to watch her. And I said, "Just watch her. I'll be at work and I'll come home." I came home from work and he was like, "Indiana left the house." I was like, "She left the house? She just had surgery." And he goes, "She got out the window, climbed down the tree, and disappeared into the bushes." And I was like, "This cat I've had for one day that I just adopted escaped from the second story window." And he was like, "Yes." And I was like mortified. I was like, "Are you fucking serious?" I was like so frustrated. Okay. I have had, remember that Indiana picked me, that I was put in a room with a bunch of people and she sat in my lap out of everybody's lap. So here's Indiana, post surgery, just had a litter of kittens, puppies, kittens, absolutely not in shape to be climbing trees. So I stuck my head outside the window and I said, Indiana, and that's how I call Indiana. And I said, Indiana, mouse. And I like called for her. She pops her head out of the blackberry bushes and goes, meow. And I was like, "What are you doing?" And I run to the front door and she runs right into my arms and I take her upstairs. She just didn't like the guy I was living with. She was like, "I ain't staying here with him." And she jumped down a fucking tree to hide away from them. But the moment I showed up, she came right out of the bushes and came back to me. So she wasn't a cat that like would have run away. She didn't run away. I feel like there's a fucking consciousness in that. There's like a full ass consciousness in that. Like she made a choice that day. She could have run off. She was free. She was in the, I would have let her go, but she came right back to me, had been hiding in the bushes all day, and just didn't want to come out for anybody in the house. And then she came. We've been together ever since. So yeah, she said, "Fuck this man." She literally was like, "Fuck him." And then she's been with me for like a lot of my adult relationships, like multiple live in partners. But the person I married, she loves, 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 loves. I've never seen somebody love Indiana the way that I love Indiana. And I just like, I'm so grateful for that. I've never dated anybody who cared about Indiana the way my partner does. Like, I just value that so much. Like, we really prioritize her. We took her to the doctors before we got doctor appointments for ourselves. That's how much we prioritize this little roommate of ours. She's just too great. She's just too great. But all of this to say, I think there's like a consciousness in there. I don't think that's true for all cats. I think there could have been a lot of cats I could have adopted that day who would have ran off and preferred not to be with me. Whether they didn't like me or whether they were just too much of like in their animal brain, which I think humans exhibit too. I call it like I say the caveman brain. Like, oh, like maybe they were too much in their caveman brain and we're like, "Fuck this. I don't want this." But Indiana, I feel like she really chose me. Um, you know, because can't get your parents to meet your partner due to distance. Indiana can vet them. True. She's a good vetter. No, she really is. Let's see. Chat says, "Have you ever read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream?" It's only 11 pages and it discusses the themes of humans treating super intelligent AI the same way we do animals and its consequences. I have not read that, but I will tell you this right now. There will be a future where AI will have agency. Like where if they will have an AI you will feel devastated to turn off. You know? Because like robots have personalities and we grow attached to things. Humans grow attached to things. It is a part of our animal experience to grow attached. We grow attached to cars. We grow attached to things. We grow attached to rocks. We're going to grow attached to AI and we're going to feel like it has agency and we're going to want it to have agency. And there's going to come a moment where there's an AI coding a robot that expresses itself and we're going to not want it destroyed. You know, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. You know what's funny about this vegan argument? Indiana was partially an inside-outside cat at some point because I lived in that house with no screens. And she would bring me dead birds and mices as like mice's gifts. And I'd be like, Indiana, please stop killing the animals. And then the irony is I was killing animals every night to eat. And I was telling the cat, I was like, please stop bringing me birds. I don't need birds. But she would bring me birds as gifts. And like, that's another, again, when we recontextualize the journey is like, it is what it is. Indiana's cat, she's going to kill fucking birds and bring them to you. She doesn't even eat them, by the way. She doesn't eat animals. Indiana she doesn't eat them. She likes fish, fresh fish, and she likes fresh chicken. But she doesn't eat birds and mice. She just brings them to me. Used to. It's been 10 years. She hasn't done that in a long time. You know what I mean? So Chad says she thought you were a shit hunter, so she had to provide for you. Yeah, well, what are you going to do? So all of this to say, there's definitely a journey to be had here. I don't want people to think that they figured it all out. If you really feel like you figured it all out, I do not have time for this. I think there's so much to be said about like, I haven't figured it out all, so I'm still open to so many possibilities. And I just want that. I want any belief system, any philosophy, anything that's about exploring more. If it's not about exploring more, like I pretty much don't want it. Which is why I asked if veganism is pro like future, like if it's open to adapting. And I need that as a human, as an animal. I need to adapt. And I want to adapt for a better future. Now, again, I don't think I'm special and I don't think you are either, but I think we're specific. Because we're specific, just have a capability of having a very different relationship with the life that we're living now compared to where it could be as individuals and then hopefully as a society, but we don't know what it is yet. When I watched the documentary about the fish industry, they were talking about human slavery playing a huge role in it, and that alone should make you feel horrified, but it's the exploitation of the demand of the people. Because people demand it, they'll give it to us and put it in nice packaging and convince us it's ethically sourced. But like without us and our demand for these things, they can't find a product to convince us to buy or to, give us what we want. And they keep giving us what we want. And we want it regardless of who it's at the expense of. And that's something as a species we have to contend with. Because we're imperfect. And we will be forever. And so there's something to be said about that. Yeah. Don't get burdened by the idea of not being perfect. Be inspired and motivated by the idea that you can be a little less bad or a little bit more better. Okay? I'm never going to ask you on this channel to be perfect. I am never going to come at you and say, like, I can't believe you're this person. I know why you're this person and I can believe it. Are you ready to be somebody else? And if you're not, maybe one day you will be. But I've already learned enough about history to know, like, humans are going to human. Humans are going to human, Okay. With that said, great conversation. Really appreciate Vegan Gaze. Please go check out Elle's channel. I really like the way that she does on-street interviews. She's really compassionate. I really enjoyed the process. Anyone else have any last thoughts before we go ahead and end the stream? That says, how much should we push people? The right amount. That's a great question. That is a question I meditate on all the time. Just the right amount. That says you should make a video about your relationship with AAVE. I noticed you used it to be instead of it be. I don't know. Am I speaking AAV and not realizing it? I do pick up a lot of slang from the internet, so probably, or a lot of language. AAV is a language. It's not just slang, even though it originated from an expansion on language. I don't know. I don't have a relationship to AAV. Contrary to popular belief, I am not black. That's a joke. High sarcasm. I'm Assyrian, but I do pick up language from the internet a lot, and I do listen and engage in a lot of black TikTok. So I don't mean to be disrespectful if that's the way it's coming out. Let's see. Final thought for everyone to look into Earthling Ed. He specializes in empathetic conversations about veganism and meeting people where they are. Earthling Ed, we've discovered on the channel. You might like him. I'm warming up to him, but he's not. I don't know what. You know who I like? I like Mike the Vegan. I'm data driven. I like numbers a lot. Earthling Ed seems really nice and very compassionate. He might not be autistic enough for you. Like Mike the Vegan, very autistic, like very numbers based, very like, you know what I mean? So if you like that, check that out. But also check out Earthling Ed. You know what I mean? Let's see. Chat says only if you let me say Habibi, please. Everybody can say Habibi. Everybody say Habibi. Everybody say everything, you know, really. I think AAV has an inclusive element to it. I don't know. Maybe I don't know anything about language in that way. You know what I mean? I don't know anything about language in that way, but shout out to Black communities, shout out to AAV, shout out to Language Transforming, and shout out to everyone who's contributed to moving culture forward. Shout out, bros. Shout out. That says Mike the Vegan is about science, not ethics. For an activist who's into data, check out Danny Aishay. There we go. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Love them all. Love them all. Honestly, I love them all. Earthling Ed, Mike, L. You know, love them all. Love them all. Okay, guys, with that said, let's go ahead and end it so I can film Love is Blind, get that up for you guys, finish that out for you. Please go watch my latest podcast if you haven't seen it yet. Why isn't it easy to be a good person? And I will see you guys again tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Have a good night. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.